Welcome to episode 193 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the trick or treat edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. On the eve of Halloween, we're not changing anything. We're not wearing any costumes. We're still ourselves here. And of course, doing this with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Josh Fine, and I don't think you're going to be dressed as Jackson DeVille tomorrow by any means. I know it is your birthday week, but I don't think that you're going to start turning into Jackson DeVille for any reason.
I like that. No, I don't think I could pull that off. I don't even have the Jackson DeVille costume or anything like that, and it's a lot of effort to do that, and I'd probably get really uncomfortable real quick and would have to probably bring a change of clothes or something to do that. But no, I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars are 6-2 going into the bye week on a roll, just beating the hated Pittsburgh Steelers and waving the terrible towel the Jaguars players were, which I extremely liked, and made all those Steelers fans in Middleburg cry that their team lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars of all teams. So glad to see that happen. And of course, on the NASCAR side, we had a bit of a interesting weekend there with the Xfinity and Cup round of 8 finale going into the Final Four. So, and plus the Formula One Mexican Grand Prix. So yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, a lot went on at Martinsville this past weekend for Xfinity and Cup, determining the Final Four in both series. We'll get into all the action that took place there. Amazing handling of you're seeing the team dynamics of one team on Saturday, and then on Sunday, a dominant performance or a clutch performance, one that we haven't seen very often or hadn't seen up to this point. But he may be turning a corner. We'll get into all that. We'll talk about the first lap incident in the Mexican Grand Prix and what ensued after that. Probably we could make a call that the fans that were at the Mexican Grand Prix and their behavior trumps the behavior of the fans that were at the Austrian Grand Prix a couple of years ago, or the Dutch Grand Prix. I mean, the characters, obvious some similarities there, but I'm not going to go there with that. But we'll get into all that went on at the Hermanos Rodriguez circuit. Fish Lips has now won 31 races in the last 2 years, calendar years, and we still aren't done with the season. He's probably going to end up breaking Lewis's record because the MFer wins 15, 16 races a year. So for all you people that want to see that, God bless you. Because when the karma train hits him, it's not going to be pretty. Because he whines and moans and he starts falling apart when anybody gets anywhere near him. And he starts forgetting how to drive a race car all of a sudden. So hopefully Lewis starts pushing him again. That would be nice. We will get into the 49ers and what has transpired over the past 3 weeks. They were 5-0, blowing out the Dallas Cowgirls, and since then it's Jekyll and Hyde everywhere across this team. So it's something I'll probably rant a little bit on that. In the roundup, we'll talk about MotoGP and Moto2. They were in Thailand this past weekend. Surfers Paradise had the supercars, and a rare occurrence for the supercars this season. The World Superbike Championship had their season finale at Jerez. Las Vegas hosted the NHRA for their next to last race of the 2023 season. Central European Rally, a first running in 3 different countries, saw a usual suspect, one that is a very young driver, making his name in the sport of rallying. And then we'll preview the season finale at Bahrain and the postseason test for the World Endurance Championship. And we'll discuss the news that came out this past weekend from Eric Almirola. Interesting based on some of the other stuff that went on during the weekend at Martinsville, but Eric Almirola made an announcement. We'll have our thoughts on that. We will then preview all 3 major NASCAR series. There will be ARCA West or whatever there as well. And I don't know what I think they're also, they're going to have a doubleheader on Friday. So I think the ARCA West will race after or before the trucks. And then we'll make our race winner picks, wild card picks, or best our favorites, wild cards, and championship 4 order. I just copied that the same way for all 3, just for continuity's sake. Josh will let us know all things going on in the world of sim racing and gaming in his sim segment, and we will close the deal. So first and foremost, we will start with the Xfinity 500 at Martinsville on Sunday. Martinsville has brought the action for many decades. Bring the action. It's been a great cutoff race leading into the Final Four. It's basically everything that Phoenix isn't, and it didn't really disappoint in that sense. Obviously, there wasn't as much. There was only 12 lead changes, but that was mainly because there was 5 cars that were dominant figures amongst the whole entire day. But one that was really dominant was Ryan Blaney, driving his discount tire Ford. Finished second in stage 1, won stage 2, came from 11th, led 4 times for 145 laps, and came back after pitting late in the race and overtook Eric Almirola, the aforementioned Eric Almirola, to win his 3rd race of 2023. They effed up there on that. 3rd race of 2023 and 10th of his career. So milestone victory, and what a time to get that. Brian Blaney, Eric Almirola, Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe, and Joey Logano, the top 5. Chase Briscoe started 3rd, so I'm going to probably talk about him for a little bit there. 4 Fords in the top 5. That's something. For how bad this year has been for Ford. 4 Fords in the top 5, and going to Phoenix, which is also a good track for Fords to end the year as a respite after what has been an ugly season for the Blue Oval gang. Kyle Larson finished 6th. Christopher Bell 7th. Of course, they were both locked in, so they didn't have anything to worry about. Christopher Buescher was off most of the weekend, was struggling, eventually ended up 8th, but he needed to win. Will be racing for 5th in points and building blocks towards what he's going to hope will be a championship run next year. Gumby Cindric and Todd Gilliland, I think they're twins because they're both tall and gangly and goofy looking, and they're sons of somebody of some semblance, round out the top 10. So credit to Todd Gilliland for actually getting a top 10 finish. He has, of course, Martinsville has been a great track for him. It's where he won his one truck race for Kyle Busch and basically napalmed his ride there. I mean, he knew he was leaving anyways, but he napalmed Kyle Busch in the post-race press conference. Gumby Cindric has had a pretty poor sophomore season after winning the Daytona 500 Rookie of the Year by default because of that. So getting a top 10 here, good for both of them. Darrell Walsh Jr. finished 11th. Martin Truex Jr. started on pole, got stage points in stage 1, but faded back. And after winning the regular season title, Martin Truex He's 12th. He finished 12th yesterday, and he is actually 12th overall in points. If you kept it based on the regular point standings and accumulation of points throughout the whole season, he's 12th in points, which is ridiculous. I mean, shows how basically before we got to Darlington, or at Darlington was the last race, or no, I'm forgetting now. Daytona was the cutoff, right? And then Darlington was the first race. So at Daytona, he was a regular season champion, and definitely a lot of people were thinking like he was a favorite to win this championship. And in the span of, 2 months, he has disappeared. One of the worst performances, I think, out of a favorite driver for a championship in recent memory. It's just crazy to see how this implosion took place. We usually see that with Denny Hamlin, but Martin Truex Jr. became a ghost for the last 9 races, and basically ceased to exist. He was the last car in the lead lap. William Byron struggled for most of the day, was holding on for dear life, basically was praying for a miracle, because he's one of those. And Rudy Fugle was eating a bunch of churros. And in the end, it all worked out for them. He finished a lap down in 13th place, but that was enough to make the final 4 over Dennis Hamlin, who needed to win the race, basically, where by the time it got down to it, to get in, Ryan Blaney, if he hadn't won the race, was going to make it in on points, but he had other plans. Chase Elliott finished 17th in the race, and Tyler Reddick finished 26th. A brutal day for him. Qualifying, he spun out, and that was basically a precursor to what happened on Sunday. So we'll take it with this. Ford's 4 out of the top 5, but YRB putting himself in position to possibly do what Joey Logano did last year and come out of nowhere in a sense and win this championship. There's been the precedent has been usually winning that first race of the round of 8, which in that sense would be, we'll talk more about it later, but Kyle Larson did that. But I think there's just as much weight in winning the week before going into a championship round, when there's somewhat similar, there are similarities track-wise and what you kind of need from the car at Martinsville and at Phoenix. So for YRB, he's been great at Phoenix over the years, recent years. Martinsville, he started to become really, really good there too. Yesterday, he put it on the field and won this race to lock himself into the Final 4. And the confidence that he has, the swagger he has, he's not cocky and arrogant like Joey Logano, but that's, being a Blaney. I think you're predisposed to not really showing emotion that way. But I think deep down inside, he's got a lot of energy in him, and he's saving it for Sunday to possibly go and become a NASCAR Cup Series champion, to join his teammate Joey Logano as a Cup Series champion. What did you think of Ryan Blaney's performance on Sunday, Josh? And also takeaways from the guys that made it in, particularly William Byron, and the guys that didn't, specifically Denny Hamlin, who yet again falls short. Martin Truex, like I mentioned, lesser with Tyler Reddick and Buescher, because Buescher basically struggled the whole playoff to the same extent as Martin Truex. But for RFK, this is a big year compared to where they were a year ago. Tyler Reddick's in his first year at 23-11, and they were inconsistent the whole year. The fact they made the final 8 was with a win. So you have to give them credit for making that progress. Bubba has made progress as well. So as an organization, they're moving forward, and I think they're going to grow that way. But I think the two main key people that we have to look at are Hamlin and Truex for the guys that got eliminated. But what were your thoughts?
I mean, for Ryan Blaney, looking at his whole season this year, outside of the Coca-Cola 600 up until the playoffs, really hadn't shown a whole lot, but in terms of wins or results, but they've kind of been the best car this year at Penske. We've seen Joey Logano not really put up that great of a run this entire year, and it showed in his early elimination in the round of 16. Austin Cindric's been a non-factor this year, so this year Ryan Blaney has really carried the flag for Team Penske, and they haven't shown a lot of speed this year until the playoffs, and somehow Dale Jr. had put Ryan Blaney in the championship for, and I'd been questioning that for so long until the last couple of weeks. And last week at Homestead, Blaney was probably in position to win that race. If it stayed green throughout the end, he probably would have won. And then this week at Martinsville, coming through in the middle of stage 2, fighting Hamlin for the lead, and ultimately end up winning the race. Which apparently Martinsville is his home track, according to Marty Snyder, which is the first I've ever heard of that. But he won there, won at Talladega, which we know he's good at, so that's not too surprising there. But now he has a chance here at Phoenix to go and possibly win the championship. And last year, probably should have won the championship race over, competing as a non-contender in the championship over Joe Logano there. But obviously we saw how he reacted after that race in Phoenix last year. He was very frustrated that he couldn't or wasn't able to pull off the win there for whatever reason. Some conspiracy theorists will say that he was told to lay over and make sure that Logano won the race there instead of passing him and possibly opening up the possibility of Ross Chastain last year winning the championship. But Logano won the championship over Chastain last year, with Ryan Blaney finishing second in that race. And Blaney, of course, finished second in the spring here at Phoenix. So he has got a good chance of actually winning it. This isn't just like a guy just kind of like getting lucky in the round of 8 and possibly winning. He's done what he's needed to do in the last 2 rounds to make it here to Phoenix, and now has a real shot to win the championship for the second year in a row for Penske and for Ford. So for that organization, it would be his first career championship in NASCAR. So he's got a real good chance of this, and definitely can see him winning the title here. So really dominant performance. Fought hard with Denny Hamlin throughout the middle of stage 2 and stage 3, and at the end was able to get around Eric Almirola with 25 to go to ultimately win the race. So for Blaney, I mean, we'll see if he can do it. I think he's coming into his own finally as a Cup driver. A couple years ago we talked about him on the show. Had kind of put up a lot of stage points to kind of carry himself into the playoffs back in 2020, but then ultimately faded in that year's running, and now he's the part of the championship force. So definitely a lot of improvement that he's shown over the course of his career. As far as the other guys, bring up the guys that were eliminated. Most notably Denny Hamlin. Of course, a lot of people poke fun at Denny Hamlin for choking because he has that tendency in the championship round or in the round of 8, and really it's hard to blame him in this one. Last week at Homestead, had the steering box failure, power steering failure that led to him hitting the wall and getting taken out of that race. And then this week just wasn't able to be up front when it counted. But they definitely not for a lack of trying there. So of course he's gonna wish that he'd made this round. He talked about it on his show. Throughout the year, his demeanor is that they'd be able to get to the championship 4 this time and compete for the title. And for for Denny. He's gonna have to try again next year, and we'll see if he's able to do something else. Obviously he's gonna have to figure out a way to win one of the final 3 races before Phoenix to be able to make it. I think that's probably his best chance of making it into the final 4. But the results that he put up throughout the year, he's definitely a guy that could have been in it. They just didn't have the luck on their side this time. You talked about Truex in this entire playoff. We talked about him just relying on his playoff points throughout the entire run in the playoffs. Just for whatever reason, they had a lot of bad luck as well, or just didn't have the pace. So just a unfortunate result. And of course, he was also in a must-win situation and wasn't a factor after the very beginning of the race. So for him, and they also caught a speeding penalty as well. So that's something that they'd like to have back. But Truex just honestly wasn't a factor in this one. So it's tough for him. But on the end of the day, he's not making it in this one. Chris Buescher, ended up finishing 8th in this one. It was kind of mid-pack for a lot of this, but ended up getting into the 8th position at the end. But still, they were in a must-win situation. They just would have never had an opportunity without a caution, within the last 150 laps of this race that went green. So, that's unfortunate for him. And then Reddick, had a bad start to the weekend anyways, with spinning out in qualifying and relegated to 19th. The place that Martinsville has turned into a track position race with this next gen car, although racing was actually pretty decent for the next gen here on a short track. So, but still ends up finishing 2 laps down. So, unfortunate for the guys that get eliminated, but Blaney makes it in. Larson is in for this 3rd year in a row. Second as a driver, 3rd as owners championship last year being on the owners title side. Chris Bell makes it in for the 2nd year in a row, and William Byron makes it in for the first time. So all 4 of these drivers that made it in, I think, have an opportunity to possibly win the championship. I think each of them have their strengths in this race, and so I think in my opinion, I think this one may be one of the more wide open in terms of who could be there in first place at the end of the race. So there's not a one car in here that I can point to or driver that I can point to that's like, okay, well, out of these 4, he's really weak at this racetrack. So I think they're all equally strong. So it's gonna be definitely a tough race to watch on Sunday. But this race definitely interesting. The tire change that they made to help with passing, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. We saw some pretty good sustained green flag racing throughout, and definitely saw some good battles, like we mentioned, with Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin, fighting each other throughout the race. Blaney and Larson fighting, or Hamlin and Larson fighting towards the end, with Hamlin trying to make passes to get up to the win possibly. Of course, not as good racing quality wise as possibly maybe the Xfinity race on Saturday, but for the next gen races that we've seen here at Martinsville, I think this one is definitely one of the better ones. So definitely a better change in that direction. Hopefully they add more horsepower in the coming years to fix the short track and road course package here. But now we're here at the Final 4 finally in this race here, this season here in NASCAR, 75th season. So looking forward to seeing how the championship race comes out, and wonder if we get a winner here that's a non-contender, or if it stays the same and the championship winner ends up being also the race winner here in this race.
Yeah, that's the thing that's been going on ever since we've gone to this format. The winner of the race has been a championship 4 contender. So there have been cars. When Jimmy ran his last race as a Hendrick driver in 2020, I think he probably had the car to win that day, and they probably told him to lay down. I think you can say conspiracy theory, whatever. I think it's blatantly obvious. It's become that way in a lot of cases. but it's become more obvious, I think, at Phoenix. It wasn't as obvious at Homestead, because I think you actually had to have a good handling race car. You had to make the thing work in long runs and stuff like that. With Phoenix, it's such a short race and the track is so crappy that really there's something to be said about if you have a better car than one of the final four. I mean, I don't. There's also other theories about it in terms of, you know, what they do with those four cars relative to the rest of the field. But for Ryan Blaney, he's there. And for a lot of years, people have said, well, Ryan Blaney is a good guy. I think he honestly is the most popular driver in this sport, because he actually, for people that say he has a vanilla personality, I don't know what they're watching. I think he actually is one of the more personable people. Yes, he's not a big talker. If you've ever seen an interview with Dave Blaney or his uncle Dale Blaney, that's just not a Blaney thing. Ryan, of course, has done his podcast for a while, years ago. He's done plenty of he has great interaction in social media. Him and Bubba are best friends, and we all know it largely because of social media, and also how they support each other. Minus Talladega earlier this year, but the thing is with Blaney, this win, and I never heard it that way either, the way that Marty Snyder is going off about it because of High Point only being an hour away from Martinsville. But there is a validity to it, because High Point relative to Martinsville is closer than High Point is to Charlotte. So, but in the end, he's won at both of those racetracks this year, so he could start turning into Martin Truex, you know, since Martin Truex has like 18 home tracks. I think there's only 18 tracks on the circuit, so, or something like that. So Ryan Blaney can start having home tracks everywhere. Wherever his girlfriend's hometown is, that's his home track too, you know. Anything in Ohio, in the state of Ohio, since the family's from Ohio, et cetera, et cetera. But yesterday, this last few weeks, and I think in some of these races that especially this 600 and this race, he got into another gear. He got another gear, and it's something that has been missing. We wondered, would Ryan Blaney ever get there? He has. Now, can he go and clutch up next week, do it again, hold off two Hendrick cars, one that's coming into it for the first time ever and coming off a race where he was generally mediocre and really not a factor and needed help. Kyle Larson, who's got all kinds of money, all kinds of things going on, he wants to be able to say he's a two-time champion twice in the last 3 years. He's nowhere near as dominant this year as he was 2 years ago, but putting himself in the history books, getting tied with Terry Labonte as Detroit scores another touchdown there. That was Sam Laporta. So for all you people that have tight ends in your league and you have Sam Laporta, congratulations. I mean, with William Byron and Kyle Larson, with the lineage of the 5-car there at Hendrick Motorsports. 24 back in the Final Four, first time since, of course, Jeffy in his final year and final race in 2015. And then you have Christopher Bell, who, when you look at Joe Gibbs Racing, then Toyota, he's the one guy that Toyota has invested a lot of money in, and they kept him, and he's been able to grow. And the 20 team, he's gotten Adam Stevens, of course, a 2-time championship crew chief with Kyle Busch. And now they've made the last 2 championship 4s. He's a guy who is starting to kind of take a similar line to Kevin Harvick's trajectory, where he would be that closer type coming out of nowhere, winning races. He's not somebody that dominates races, but he's there when it counts. He doesn't do it every week. He's not dominant in that way, but he's a very crafty driver, really talented. This is a very interesting Final Four, to be fair, and it's the next generation. This is probably the first Final Four that, now we're in the 75th year of NASCAR. This Final Four is a game-changing Final Four for the sport. If Larson wins a second championship, he's widely regarded as one of the best race car drivers in the world. Pretty sure he is. You can count him in the top 5 without a problem. Byron has been one of those, like, he's been like sliced spread, whatever type talents, coming from the doing sim racing initially, and then having daddy's money to help him along too. But his talent really helped him. He had the talent to back it up. He has a personality of cardboard, but that fits Hendrick Motorsports perfectly fine. You have Christopher Bell, who everybody has said for years is one of the most talented guys. Can he add his name to his 2 teammates as Cup Series champions? And then Ryan Blaney, who arguably and honestly is the most popular driver in the sport, and has been on the cusp of making a breakthrough. If he makes this breakthrough with back-to-back wins to end this season, Penske is in great shape. Penske's in great shape anyway as an organization, but Penske is in really good shape if Ryan Blaney pulls this off on Jonathan Hassler and that 12 bunch. It makes all the sacrifice and all the energy and moving him from the woods to a third car at Penske all worthwhile. And him as a champion is a very good thing for the sport. I think if one of those guys was to win, it would be the best thing for NASCAR. A Blaney win is the best win for NASCAR. In terms of LCD, of course, it's Kyle Larson. Christopher Bell would be a champion that, he's a racer, not a big talker, and Will Byron's Will Byron. He'll say all the right things, but in a lot of ways he reminds me of Mike Pence. Christopher Bell reminds me of just like your average like his personality's average run-of-the-mill guy. He's got like Ned Flanders tendencies to me, but then he's got the driving talent of freaking Tony Stewart. He's got Tony Stewart's driving talent, and he has the kind of like personality of Ned Flanders. So it's like, I don't know what the hell to take from that. And then Larson just a goofball who is like Tim Richmond and can drive anything, but his personality is basically of a grapefruit. So if NASCAR really wants something that's going to be dynamic, I think they need to start rooting for Ford and Ryan Blaney, but that's just me. Now, on the flip side of the Cup Series, where it was relatively tame on Sunday, was the Xfinity Demolition Derby that took place in the Dead On Tools 250. And one thing that was dead on is that Austin Hill and Sheldon Creed do not like each other. And I would also add that basically everybody within the RCR organization has done everything in their power to make sure that Sheldon Creed doesn't succeed and that they favor Austin Hill. My goodness, what a insane race that took place on Sunday or Saturday, going and having the incidents and everything that took place there. There was plenty of cautions. If you're looking for great driving standards, you definitely did not get that in this race. There was a lot of argy-bargy going on, a lot of bad driving. Can't bring up the results here. That's great. I don't know why the link doesn't work. Guess I'll have to go on Racing Reference. We'll see if they updated that. Yep.
Got you.
All right, cool. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, so here we go. So 15 cautions. The race was a 250 lap race, 101, or it ended up being 256. So 101 of the race's 256 laps were under yellow, which is freaking ridiculous. You look at the green. You had certain people here. The 53 was Akinori Ogata, I think. So he was involved in 2 cautions. I think every seed car was involved in a yellow at some point during the day. You had the 38, the 29, the 39. I forget. Yeah, the 28. Yeah, the 28. Or no, the 29, the 39, the 38. And I think there was one other one, right? I think they had 4 cars, the 28. Yeah. So every single one of their cars was involved in a caution at some point during the day, which is really bad. But then when you employ people like CJ McLaughlin and Joe Graff Jr., you really can't expect anything different. And when you have Kyle Sieg, who's probably over his head, too, that doesn't help. Ryan Sieg is not a crasher per se, but he had mechanical issues. He spun and he was having mechanical issues, so just a bad day for him. The results of the race: Justin Allgaier, the winner, in a photo finish going to the line over Sheldon Creed. Sammy Smith started on the pole, led the most laps, but once he lost track position, wasn't able to get back up there, probably largely because of all the yellows. Riley Herbst finished 4th, continuing his strong end to the season after what was ho-hum most of the season. That first win at Las Vegas and the way he did it has set him free, and now all of a sudden he looks like he has something. His future teammate at Stewart-Haas Racing, Josh Berry, at one of his best racetracks, gets a top 5 finish. Daniel Hemrick, 6th. Parker Retzlaff, one of our usual dark horse picks, finished 7th, qualified in the top 10. Anthony Alfredo, having the race sponsor on his 78, getting one of his best finishes of the entire year, maybe his best finish all year. Jeb Burton from tailback to 9th, and then Parker Kligerman in 10th. He caused one of the yellows during the day, so for him to come back from that is something. And you have, I think the next from there is Lane Riggs in 11th. Lane Riggs got used up I don't know how many times, and for him to get all the way back to 11th, that's just what a job by him. And how the guy doesn't have full funding is beyond me. I'll also say the same for Rajah Caruth. Getting a top 15 run for the Tommy Joe Martins team is huge. I did shit on CJ McLaughlin because he does suck, but he did finish 13th on Saturday. We can get into why. We're going to get into why here shortly. Josh Williams, they have the Checkers or Wreckers diecast for the car he parked at Atlanta. out there. So I would hope that he gets some residuals for if we were to go and buy that diecast, because he deserves it. He's a good guy. And Myatt Snyder just rounds out the top 15. Buckshot Jones was up front for a good part of the day, top 10, but didn't finish there. Jeremy Clements, the same. John Hunter Nemechek, Cole Custer finished 19th, and that's big for a reason. Austin Hill, 21st. Sam Mayer, 25th. Got destroyed, not because he didn't take into account the slowing down Josh Bilicki, and he smashed into the back of him during the first yellow. And then Chandler Smith had mechanical issues and then wrecked the car. Lame duck guy gonna be moving on to Joe Gibbs Racing. They haven't announced. It seems like he is gonna be there, but we also know one other guy that's gonna be there, and one is Justin Allgaier. For a good amount of the race, it didn't look great for him. It was looking pretty sketchy to go and make that final four. He had to sweat it for a bit. Sammy Smith led a lot of the race, so then that really changed the whole dynamic. But in the end, right place, right time for Justin Allgaier at a track where he's been close before, to finally get that first win at Martinsville and lock himself into the final four, joining Sam Mayer and John Hunter Nemechek, who locked himself in earlier in the race. So those three guys make it in. Sheldon Creed, yet again, comes close to winning his first career Xfinity race, but falls short. And the major takeaway from this race was the action that took place between himself and his teammate Austin Hill. They're not really fond of each other. That's pretty clear. They've not raced each other with a lot of respect throughout for the good part of this year. It wasn't really as bad last year. I think they were in two different really zones. Austin Hill wasn't as dominant of a figure last year. He did win super speedway races and whatever, but that was really what he is, a one-trick pony. This year he started winning on all different types of racetracks, and him and John Hunter Nemechek had took off and disappeared. It took until the middle of the year for Allgaier to wake up. But this year it looks like Sheldon Creed has been trying harder, which with him, with how he is and how aggressive he is as a driver, leads to accidents and leads to incidents. While in turn, doing that around your teammate has also led to some very tough situations, whether inflicted or not. Austin Hill spends most of his time bitching and moaning anyways if he doesn't get his way, because he's daddy's money. Sheldon Creed also comes from some semblance of money, but he also is one of the best wheelmen we've seen. He's a protege of Robbie Gordon, so there's a lot of similarities to some of the actions that Sheldon Creed has done, especially with his teammate, that speak to being like Robbie Gordon, who also used to be employed by Richard Childress. But he needed to win the race, and Austin Hill theoretically didn't need to win the race. There at the end of that deal, there was a massive wreck there that caused a green-white checkered. Sheldon Creed led lap 254. Austin Hill led lap 255, but they were side by side. They doored each other. Sheldon Creed eventually gets around Austin Hill, but for whatever reason, whether he intentionally parked in front of Austin Hill or he lost grip and he couldn't get through couldn't get off the corner, whatever the reasoning was. Because of that incident between those two drivers, Justin Allgaier got the room to go and be able to get side by side with Sheldon Creed and win the race, lock himself into the final four, while Sheldon Creed is left wanting, and both RCR cars get knocked out. RC goes and basically defames Sheldon Creed in post-race with the media. Andy Petrie basically verbally attacks Sheldon Creed on pit road, and Sheldon Creed goes and says, if he had done that to me, you wouldn't have cared anyway, which is true. He handled himself relatively well, I gotta say, in post-race presser, considering where he's going or what he's doing. Austin Hill continues to be a bitch, and bitched and moaned about how he's not a team player and this and that and the other thing, and he's glad he's going to Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't think that that's really a classy thing to do, but then I'm not exactly expecting class from an inbred hillbilly from Georgia. In the end, Austin Hill hasn't done enough to justify being in this playoff or being in the Final Four. He's been pretty mediocre the last few weeks. So he took it out of his own hands by not performing. His crew chief got suspended last week because they couldn't put tight and lug nuts. You did it to yourself. You didn't perform. The cars weren't good. He wasn't performing as a driver. Andy Street wasn't doing the job he needed to do, and he was sitting at RCR and Welcome, watching the 21 team blow themselves out of the playoffs. But they want to use Sheldon Creed as a scapegoat because they've made contact. They made contact at Bristol, which I honestly think was we went different ways on that. In this case, I will say that I have rooted for Sheldon Creed over the years. I think he's got the talent, but he hasn't been used right at RCR, which is why he's leaving. He was racing his teammate. He needed to win the race. I think in the end, he didn't dump him. He didn't send him. He didn't do what Keebler Gibbs did to Buckshot Jones last year. They were dooring each other. They're racing. The only question I have, and I would love to see SMT data on it, is what happened in turns 3 and 4 with his throttle trace. Was Austin Hill up his ass and his rear wheels were lifted off the ground? Or did he just decide to go and parallel park his car in 3 and 4 intentionally, which in turn would destroy him and then he wouldn't make it? Now, if you're that calculated in that spot, I mean, that's a whole nother level. I mean, I know Robbie Gordon has done some weird shit over the years, but that's something I would have to say is next level, personally. But in the end, Sheldon Creed wanted to win, wanted to advance, and he didn't. And Justin Allgaier was a beneficiary. The controversy between those two guys is something that we aren't really sure what's going to happen in the end, because the entry blank says Sheldon Creed because they put it out or put it through weeks ago. You have to put your entry for a race, I think, 3 weeks in advance or some shit. I forget the rules, but Sheldon Creed was going to be on that entry list anyways because they put it out weeks ago. The reality of the world is, after what took place on Saturday, the chances of Sheldon Creed driving the 2-car this weekend are probably not very high. Then probably this is going to go to litigation, which, to be fair, it's Richard Childress and all the money he has with some of the people that he's involved with. He's probably going to pay it off. I mean, he pays to let Austin Dillon go and destroy race cars for decades, so he's probably going to go and pay Sheldon Creed to sit at home this weekend. But a lot of action, a lot of bad driving, and in the end, a finish that will be used for highlight reels for years to come, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, this race was definitely one of the more chaotic ones that we've seen for the round of 8 elimination race. I think what happened in this race is kind of what I was expecting to see on Sunday in the Cup side, but I think the Cup Series, they raced a lot more professionally there, and this one, just a lot of wrecking in the end, and really, I think a lot of people, the focus is going to be on the finish of that with Sheldon Creed and Austin Hill getting into it with each other. Sheldon Creed did what he needed to do to win the race. He raced his teammate hard there. They pay him to win a championship, and he did exactly what he needed to do there. But then, the turn 3 and 4 on the final lap, he says he slipped in some oil and couldn't get a good drive off of there, and that's why he slowed up in the middle of 3 and 4. And then Austin Hill ran into the back of him and triggered the last lap crash, which was very reminiscent of you go back to 2017 in the Cup Series, Denny Hamlin wrecking the field there on the final lap of that one. Looked very reminiscent to that, and I think last year's Xfinity race in the spring as well. So really focus on that one. Austin Hill, I think fans' opinion of him changed this past weekend. He talks about being a tough guy and everything, but then goes out and races like a crybaby, I guess, so according to what fans have been saying on Twitter and Reddit and stuff. And Hill, he could have been a little bit more forward thinking there, because there was still an opportunity for him to go out and win the race, or not win the race, but at least make it into the Final Four, even if Sheldon Creed had won. Cole Custer possibly, finishing 6th or 7th on a tiebreaker there, and could have made it in that way. But no, he goes and runs in the back of his teammate because I guess maybe he was salty about how his teammate raced him there in the final lap and a half of that race, and getting moved over like that. But I think more interesting than besides that, as the response afterward, like you said, what we talked about, Childress calling him the stupidest driver that's ever raced for him, Andy Petrie yelling at him on pit road, and then Sheldon Creed basically saying, well, this is why I'm leaving, because of stuff like this. Austin Hill accusing him of being calculated enough to jam the brakes in the middle of turn 3 and 4 to ruin both of their races. I don't think that's possible, and everything. And then you brought up the Robbie Gordon dynamic. Remember Sheldon Creed, protege of Robbie Gordon, and Robbie Gordon helped him secure that ride over at RCR, and it was a good reference for that. He'll remember, back in the day when Robbie Gordon was racing the 31 cars, often kind of the black sheep over there at RCR, and then ultimately got released towards the very end of the 2004 season, and got moved over from that ride. So ended up not doing very much in NASCAR after that, but definitely wasn't on the good side of Richard Childress. So I find that very similar in that aspect. But the team ownership just not acting very professional there, and everything just kind of shows the environment that is at Richard Childress Racing. They really only care about one car, it seems like, in each series, and or the car of the grandson. It was 2004. He got replaced by Jeff Burton in the end of the 2004 season, because Burton got released, and he got,
very true. My fault, because he ran out of sponsorship and on the 9th, and because, well, actually, wasn't it 2000? Yeah, it was 2004. Yeah, because Carl Edwards came along and then started racing the 99 car. That's true. And then, even though Carl Edwards wasn't listed as a rookie, he was a rookie in 05. Yeah. Okay. Now it makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, all of that being said, with the going back with the history of that, but so that's kind of what I was thinking about. But just they haven't really treated him right there. It seems like from what we're getting from this, and Sheldon Creed, that's why he's leaving to go to Joe Gibbs, which I found that funny too. Is that Austin Hill was so mad that he accidentally revealed the plans for Sheldon Creed before he had a chance to go out and announce that. So that was a bit funny there too. So yeah, just a bad situation there for those two teammates, and chance for Sheldon Creed to finally get his first win here in the series. Ironically, he goes out and finishes in another side-by-side finish to Justin Allgaier, just like at Daytona 2 months ago. So, Sheldon Creed has had opportunities to win this year. Look at Portland had an opportunity to win there possibly, and that one kind of fell back after some argy-bargy there. So, yeah, I mean, he's still got a little bit to work on, I think, as a driver, but I definitely think he'll do a lot better in Gibbs Racing equipment rather than the RCR. So, of course, RCR still behind Joe Gibbs and behind Junior Motorsports there. So, still looking to be better at that. Austin Hill, of course, literally gave it away here in the last lap of that race. Of course, look at we talked about Denny Hamlin being a choker, and then everything. Well, that's a very textbook example there of choking away a chance to win a title. So, and of course, he was the other guy this year that was really good besides John Hunter Nemechek. There was at times throughout this year where I thought maybe he had the better season, but at the end of the day, Hunter goes out and makes it in the Final Four, and Austin Hill isn't. So, yeah, of course, that just what a way to lose your spot there for the championship four. And then, of course, Justin Allgaier winning to make it in. He was on the outside looking in. It was very tight on points at the very end, and then basically was going to have to win the race there to make it into the Final Four, which he was able to do. So he, of course, last week at Homestead had a flat tire in the middle of it and ends up finishing 15th, a lap down. So he definitely needed the points to be able to make it in here into the championship four, which is able to do. So now we have two Junior Motorsports cars here in the Final Four, Cole Custer and John Hunter Nemechek. So this is also a pretty interesting Final Four here in the Xfinity series. So you have everybody, Justin Allgaier, perennial Final Four contender, going out, possibly have an opportunity to win the title finally for the first time, and then three young guns that haven't won, kind of proving himself again after being in Cup and not making it in 2020, and then kind of rebuilding himself in the Truck Series the last couple of years. So and then Cole Custer also kind of rebuilding his career after Cup with Stuart Haas. So I think this championship four here in Xfinity very very good throughout, and Sam Mayer, of course, finally turning it his season around after a couple of road course wins and then winning at Homestead. So it's going to be interesting here at Phoenix. I think all four of these drivers are going to be contending. We'll see who turns out. I mean, we'll make our picks later in the show, but definitely looking forward to watching this one on Saturday, or at least being able to follow the race and see how it all plays out.
Yeah, great points there, of course. Talking about Robbie Gordon and Sheldon Creed and the similarities. Robbie Gordon had a habit of becoming a kind of a thorn in the side and blowing himself out of teams. Sheldon Creed has had a relatively controlled NASCAR career in that, in the ARCA series he raced, I forget what team he raced for in the ARCA series offhand now. But that was with Jeff Stankiewicz, and they won a championship there. Then they moved up to race for GMS in the trucks. He ends up going and winning a championship there. Was resourceful, needed a late race, last lap pass or whatever, or green, white, checkered pass to do it, but he won the championship. Xfinity has not been as successful, but the talent's there. And Joe Gibbs is probably going to benefit from it. But Austin Hill, it had, you made the point about the Denny Hamlin choke job, and that's really what that 21 team as a whole has done. It was a combination of Austin Hill doing a Denny Hamlin choke job, and then that team basically going into what the 19 team did, which is disappearing, because they were not a factor during this playoff run. And you can blame the wind, you can blame this, that, and the other, somebody farted, whatever, but the 21 car stunk. And they were good in the regular season, but John Hunter Nemechek just kept on winning, and the 21 car stopped winning. And the 7 car and Justin Allgaier woke up in the middle of the year and then took notice and started putting himself out there and winning races. So in the end, that it swapped, and Justin Allgaier became that guy. And so it's a good thing he's in the championship. He's been close so many times. Can he finally close the deal? John Hunter Nemechek has been the best driver this season. They've been the best team. Can he finally close in a big spot, knowing that he's going to move up to Cup next year with Legacy? Cole Custer, if he can go out there and as a reclamation, having that redemption arc kind of in Xfinity, being a right place at the right time kind of guy this year, and put it together. There's a car open now at Stewart-Haas Racing. And then, of course, for Sam Mayer, he's young. He's got a lot of money behind him with his family. He has talent. Is he going to make his name as one of the youngest drivers ever to win the Xfinity championship? So there's plenty of intrigue there. The RCR stuff is pretty sad. I mean, Andy Petrie is a championship crew chief, and he's seen a lot and been through a lot in the decades that he's been in the sport. To be the director of competition at an organization and basically be castigating your driver in front of everybody is a hack move. Richard Childress, his organization has been mediocre and irrelevant for the better part of the last 2 decades. Essentially, since Dale Earnhardt died, what is Richard Childress Racing? Kevin Harvick kept them somewhat relevant, but that started to go away. If it wasn't him, they weren't winning. They were a 3-car organization, then they became a 2-car organization. He's harbored Austin Dillon for his whole entire career, and the guy's a waste. Can somebody tell me what race he's ever won on merit in the Cup Series? I'm waiting. He's won 4 races, so whatever, credit to him. He's married to a freaking chick that looks like a tranny. But what the hell does he bring to the table? He's short and he's got a bald spot on the side of his head, and he's got an ego that's the size of Texas, but he has the driving ability of a thimble. He needed NASCAR's help to win an Xfinity championship, and he ran over Eric Almirola to win the Daytona 500. He had fuel mileage at Charlotte in the 600, so it was at Casey Mears. And then he goes and at Texas, you couldn't even pass. And Tyler Reddick basically laid down there. Does he have 4 wins or does he have 3 wins? Am I giving him credit for another win that I don't know? I'm going to go and check.
Daytona 500, Coke 600, the Coke 0400 last year in Texas in 2020.
Yeah. And then, I forgot about him driving at quarter throttle behind everybody else when everybody drove into a rainstorm because of NASCAR's genius, and not putting a yellow flag out. When you're a multi-billion-dollar organization, you don't have anybody spotting out on the track in Florida in August, and there's a thunderstorm in the middle of the afternoon. Nobody saw rain, and then they send the whole entire field into turn one and destroy the whole field. And the only car that was there that was actually functional was him. Please. Richard Childress is like, his ego. He carries himself still like the guy that, was the owner of Dale Earnhardt, and he was the owner of Dale Earnhardt and all this. But Dale Earnhardt, unfortunately, hasn't been here for 21 years. The days of Dale Earnhardt and being the best team in the business ended well before that. They were not an elite organization even at the end of Dale Earnhardt's time. They had started to go away that way too. Hendrick Motorsports became that team. You look at some of these other organizations, Roush had bypassed them, Penske, et cetera, et cetera. The way he handles business, there's a reason why they don't win much. They're lucky that they got Kyle Busch, largely because Joe Gibbs basically dumped him for Keebler. That's the only reason you have Kyle Busch. If you don't have Kyle Busch, you ran Tyler Reddick out the door. What are you doing for drivers? I mean, really. I like the Final Four. I think it's really interesting to see what's going to happen with that. The nonsense that took place during that race is not great, because you're just running over each other. Some of these guys are out of their depth, but it's part of the problem with Xfinity and trucks. You can bring a bag and you could drive, even if you can't even drive a hot nail through snow. Speaking of people who can't drive a hot nail through snow, like Lance Strolovich, we will get into the Formula One Mexican Grand Prix, which saw Fish Lips win his 16th race of the season, breaking his own record from last year. So it's pretty insane to think, for all the people that whined and moaned about the dominance of Lewis Hamilton. They probably didn't know about what Sebastian Vettel did in 2011 and 2013. They didn't watch when Michael Schumacher was around. This is kind of similar. What Schumacher used to do is what Fish Lips is doing right now. And he went out there and won another race. I mean, you had a red flag because of Kevin Magnussen's huge shunt, and it was and they had to repair the barriers and all that stuff. So it was once they did that, you had a free pit stop. Karen Horner came out, of course, and spoke about Lewis Hamilton being lucky to finish second, because, of course, when his golden butt boy had to actually work a little bit, it's never credit to Lewis or Mercedes for doing the right things. It's luck or this or that or the other thing. The results of the Mexican Grand Prix, in the end, Verstappen usually wins by double digits. He won by 13.87 seconds. Lewis was 9.5 seconds, whatever, ahead of Charles Leclerc, who started on pole but got boat raced on the start. It was all Ferrari front row. Smooth operator fourth. Lando Norris started on the last row on the grid because he had issues in qualifying and came back to finish fifth. I'm no fan of Lando Norris. I think he's a douche, but he's not as douchey as his friend George Russell, but he's got knob gobbler tendencies. Must be a thing being Max Verstappen's friend. Lando Norris finished 5th, Russell 6th, Daniel Ricciardo, best race he's had in a long, long time. Best weekend he's had in a long, long time. Finished 7th in the AlphaTauri. Oscar Piastri 8th. Alexander Albon 9th for Williams. And Esteban Ocon rounding out the top 10. Yuki Tsunoda had a chance to finish in the top 10 to give double points for AlphaTauri. Got into an incident late in the race and knocked himself out of the points. So we go and use all that, I'm just going to, 15 second, whatever, record breaking, 31 wins in the last 2 seasons for Fish Lips. Checo, the big story from the race itself, other than the Magnussen wreck and having the red flag and having a reset, was Sergio Perez at home trying to win his home Grand Prix in what probably will be his last attempt. And he got a great start, went 3 wide on the start, going all the way down that long front straightaway, and tried to turn in a 3 wide situation. Of course, Verstappen was on the inside, Charles Leclerc was in the middle, and he had nowhere to go. And Sergio Perez turned across the left front corner of his Leclerc's car, and promptly went and launched himself into the sky, and destroyed his car and knocked himself out of the race. The behavior of the Mexican fans throughout just in general, not only on social media but during the weekend, spoke to a greater problem, which we might get into here. Start Sailback, AlphaTauri out of the basement, and the constructors with that run from Daniel Ricciardo, which is huge. Albon carrying Williams on his back. I will say, before we go into your thoughts, Josh, I think one thing that's crazy, we talk about people who drop off the cliff. You had guys that were driving well at the start of the season and then went to hell when it counted. We're at the end. We're on the second part of the season. Fernando Alonso was literally the only person that could compete with Fish Lips at the start of the year. The Aston Martins have completely dropped off a cliff. There's all kinds of rumors. Sounds like Stroll is trying to sell, which, if that happens, of course, we'll get rid of Lance Stroll that way, which will be great. But there's a lot of stuff going on with that team, and that whatever development, they may have stopped development, whatever the things, they didn't stop development because they made an upgrade last week, but it didn't work. You're now not even making it out of Q1. They basically flipped spots with McLaren. McLaren was in couldn't even get out of Q1 at Bahrain at the start of the year, and now they're Q3 runners regularly and competing for podiums, wins, and all that. It's insane. I've never seen that kind of turnaround for 2 organizations before, but in the sense of Aston Martin, that is atrocious. The amount of money they have that they put into it. There was issues, of course, for Haas and Alpha Sauber and all that, but the usual guy won. But I think there's a lot to be said about the run that Lewis Hamilton had. He will keep the second place finish. There is a chance that he could possibly get second in the Drivers' Championship. You're starting to get the comments out of Red Bull and notice that Lewis and that Mercedes are starting to make a little bit of a run. They're not fast enough to win, but they're coming up there. And you're talking about a 7.5 or 8 time world champion with more wins than anybody and more poles and all that. You're not going to keep him down. But the season, we already know what this season is going to be. I don't think Max is going to lose the rest of the year unless he has a mechanical problem or crashes, which he isn't going to crash in that car. I don't think it would be on his own. But I think that's one piece is Lewis, and then also Sergio Perez's desperation to try and win the Mexican Grand Prix, and the ill-advised maneuver he did, because honestly, and to me, if he had just backed out of it prior to turn one and he tried to go and he waited getting through the chicane and try to go and switch around, kind of do an old switcheroo, as Crofty would say, I think he would have had a chance. I think give yourself a chance, your first corner of the race, back off, give yourself a chance to pass Leclerc probably on lap 2, and then you have a straight fight with your teammate. The championships are over. They would have actually been able to race. Would they have really allowed him to race? I don't know, because it's Red Bull, but he could have had a chance versus what had happened. But what did you see, Josh, in terms of that, and what Lewis is doing towards Fish Lips, and anything else that you thought about the Grand Prix itself?
Yeah, I mean, going to what happened with Checo Perez there in the first lap, it's real unfortunate that he couldn't make that move work, and 3 wide on the first lap. It's definitely a hero move. Go be a hero on lap 1, and coming from iRacing, what I've done on there, a lot of people give each other pep talk before the race, like when we talk amongst ourselves, and usually we all try to agree that nobody try to go out and be a hero on lap 1, because it just usually ends in disaster. And for Sergio Perez, I mean, yeah, it could have worked, and of course, it's also possibly maybe your last chance to win at your home track here in Formula One. So I get it, but at the same time, it's really hard to go out and do that without making a mistake and taking yourself out or taking other people out with you. So I guess you can give him credit for trying to make the move and try to win, but it's hard. You don't win the race on lap 1 usually. So that's kind of what I think about that. But you saw the emotion that he had afterwards, on the onboard camera, just how much this race means to him and everything. Of course, we still don't know what his plans are post this season, but we know that there's possibly a potential retirement on the horizon. So we'll see, if that looms and that has anything behind his emotion and his decision making in this race. So, but definitely had to try to do something to try to win over his teammate, which I do question that. I mean, I think Verstappen, of course, has had the best pace all season, and even on days when Sergio Perez had better pace than him, I think even then Verstappen still was probably going to be the better car. So, and I think that would have been the case again in this race if he had survived that turn 1 move or that lap 1 move. So that's what I think there. Of course, you mentioned Aston Martin and McLaren. I mean, it's really interesting to see how that has played out the last couple of races here, and McLaren just suddenly becoming good, since the summer break. And, even before the summer break, you could start to see the results in Aston Martin, especially with Alonso, start to falter and start to taper off the last couple of weeks before the summer break. Of course, Alonso started out with podiums to start the year, and it was like, oh, wow, Fernando's back and everything, and he's really turned it around, helping this team in what we assume is going to be his last contract. But the last half of the year, they've really disappeared and switched places essentially with McLaren there. So for Alonso, after a strong start, he's really just kind of stumbled here to the end in Formula One this year. So we'll see if they can turn around next season, but it's definitely not the way that you want to end in the year. And of course, Stroll has always been a step behind, of course, and had some flashes at the beginning of the year as well. But he's had a lot more poor results, I guess, than Alonso, and now it's just continuing to add up. And I think for Alonso, I think he needs a good teammate, and I just don't know if Lance Stroll is really the teammate that he needs. We know he's not really that great of a driver, so if they were to put somebody else that can complement Alonso, it won't happen, but theoretically speaking, could a better teammate potentially help him post better results than what we probably expect to be his final season next year. We'll have to see, but for that team, definitely very shocking to see considering where they started out this year, and just shows you have to continue to improve throughout the year. And same thing for Mercedes, and Lewis Hamilton. They just hadn't had the pace throughout the entire season, but the last couple of races here in Formula One, they've begun to really turn it around and still have second place up for grabs potentially in the Drivers' Championship. And if Lewis continues to finish where he finishes, then I think he definitely has a shot to get that second place spot, which considering where they've been the last 2 years, would definitely be a win and show that they definitely still have what it takes, that Lewis still has what it takes. So it's a great building block for next season, and potentially finally Lewis Hamilton returns to victory lane if he doesn't win by the end of this year, and definitely have a more legitimate chance to compete against McLaren and compete against Red Bull. So they're working there. You can start to see the foundation come up and see how they're performing. So I think a second place finish. They say they finished second last week, didn't get to keep the result, but you can see the pace is there now finally for Mercedes, and we just have to, if you're a Mercedes fan, you just have to hope they continue to innovate and that they don't get stagnant over the off season and lose ground to McLaren again, and have to continue to make up ground, and that they'll be on more even ground as they begin 2024 for sure there. So just a crazy race with that beginning start. Of course, Magnussen, huge crash, and Magnussen has a red flag. They had a restart there. So definitely a crazy part there. And of course, Daniel Ricciardo, can't forget him. Of course, had a really good qualifying effort to put himself in position to compete in this race, and ends up getting a fourth place finish, and shows that he still has what it takes, still's got something in the tank here. With AlphaTauri, at times we've probably said that they're probably one of the worst teams on the grid this year, and definitely shows that they've made improvements as a team. And with Ricciardo there as a really good driver, he's putting in really veteran elite performances in this car when he's been in. So now at the fourth place finish here at this track, it's definitely a confidence booster for him, and definitely for the team, that they can put together races where they expect to compete for points, and even possibly a podium if things go their way with the type of finishes that they've had with Ricciardo, especially in this race. So, and hopefully that transfers over to Yuki Tsunoda as well. He hasn't had quite the performances that they probably would have expected him to have, his first couple of years here in F1. So definitely a good race here, even with Verstappen winning. Of course, maybe next week or sometime, maybe Verstappen will stop winning. Maybe he'll not win the inaugural Las Vegas Grand Prix, but I doubt it, but we'll see. So looking forward to Brazilian Grand Prix this weekend, and we'll see if we had a different result there. But we'll see if Lewis can, or any of these other guys can maybe challenge Verstappen here.
We have to hope for the last, 3 races now, right? So Brazil, and then they have Vegas and Abu Dhabi, that something can change. It's only been one time since Azerbaijan, when Perez was still in the title fight. I think he was leading the championship after Azerbaijan. That there's somebody other than Phillips has won, and that was, of course, that great race by Carlos Sainz at Singapore. We'll see what happens. Brazil was a rare, different situation where the Mercedes were up front, George Russell won his first career Grand Prix there. Lewis Hamilton followed him in second. So we'll see if that same kind of performance can happen again this year, but I doubt it. Red Bull, 731 points in the constructors. Right now, Mercedes leads Ferrari by 22 points. McLaren is up by 20 points on Aston Martin. So that's, I mean, and probably they've locked up fourth in the constructors. The battle for last in the constructors championship, Alexander Albon's continued great performances has Williams in seventh, 12 points ahead of both AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo. The performance by Daniel Ricciardo gets the AlphaTauri team off of the bottom to now eighth. Alfa Romeo now drops back, and then Haas, both Alfa Romeo and Haas drop back to ninth and 10th, respectively, the two customer Ferrari teams. In the driver's standings, Sergio Perez is 20 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton. So I guess, I thought that after last week at Qatar, or a few weeks ago at Qatar when he crashed, that it was all gone for Lewis, but instead Sergio Perez went and yeeted himself in turn one at his home Grand Prix, and now it's right back and open again with 3 races to go in the season. 20 points is the gap, and then of course there's a sprint as well at Brazil. Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso are tied for fourth in the championship right now. Lando Norris is 3 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. George Russell is right now, 18 points? Yeah, 18 points behind Lando Norris. So all 3 of those friends, they're racing for position. Oscar Piastri in his own area, and Pierre Gasly 3 points ahead of Stroll for 10th in the Drivers' Championship. All right, so getting to football, I'll try to keep it brief because we're already, I probably went off a bit on some tangents today with what we talked about on Cup and Xfinity, and also with Formula One. Football is also worth a rant, but the 49ers started the year at 5-0. They're now 5-3. They've lost 3 consecutive games. All of them have had a similar feel. Purdy has not looked as good. He's not played as well, which is a big deal because the quarterback is where everybody goes and looks at. I think Kyle Shanahan's play calling has not exactly been the greatest either. You add the injury to the best offensive lineman in the league in Trent Williams. You add Deebo Samuel being hurt, and it's become a theme now with the 49ers over Deebo's time that when he's not on the field, the team is not, the offense is not as dynamic, which is true, which is not a shock to anybody, but they seem to have issues. And I saw this, I'm going to say, I saw this on the socials that, they have issues executing when Deebo isn't out there because of all the windows, all the spaces they're able to get, the blocking teams they're able to execute to go and get the likes of Christian McCaffrey more room, which, Christian McCaffrey already is a great player. Get Brandon Ayuk one-on-ones, get George Kittle one-on-ones, you add that. I mean, the one thing that we see is that Kyle Shanahan doesn't trust anybody outside of Deebo Samuel, those 4 guys to throw the ball to, which is a problem. The loss of Trent Williams, so for now, is not a good thing because they can't block blindside for Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has made some throws that make me think he's Jimmy Garoppolo, which means that my health is, I've had health issues, and I can go and say I blame him on Jimmy Garoppolo because I've had to watch him play quarterback for the 49ers for the last 5-6 years. But to be fair, it's my own doing. But Jimmy Garoppolo's quarterback play doesn't help. Brock is going through a tough time, but I think he's going to get out of it. I think the bigger concern is how bad the defense has played, and basically Richard Sherman went out on his podcast and said that the problem is the play calling. Steve Wilkes looks out of his depth the last 3 weeks. You're getting worked by PJ Walker and the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, come on, man. The game against Minnesota, he made Kirk Cousins look like Fran Tarkington, and Burrow look like a guy who's what he is, which is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He didn't need the help. When you're not even able to scheme like basic things, when you're not able to scheme to stop anything, they can't. It sounds, I'm going to go and do the Jim Mora. That second half of that game, we couldn't do diddly poo offensively. We couldn't make a first down. We couldn't run the ball. We didn't try to run the ball. We couldn't tackle. We couldn't. We sucked. We stunk. Playoffs? Talking about playoffs? Playoffs? I just want to win a game. So it's literally Steve Wilkes. I mean, I don't have it in me. I don't have the high voice, and then I just drank something, so I can probably screw myself on that. But I appreciate it. But the fact is, Steve Wilkes, I get now why he didn't get picked to be the Carolina Panthers coach. Now, granted, Frank Reich is not doing much of anything this year. They're basically building it from the bottom up. They only just won their first game yesterday, and it was surprising that they beat the Houston Texans, of all teams. I guess he wanted to prove that he made the right choice with the... I'm forgetting the guy's name now, but over CJ Stroud, but he hasn't played well most of the year. He finally puts together an okay game to get his first win. But Stroud has been better. He did have a bad game yesterday, but in terms of Brock, it's similar to Brock Purdy. He's only played 13 games in his career. So, for the first adversity he really has faced, other than that injury he suffered in the NFC Championship game. But I think he'll be all right. I think with the bye week, they'll be okay. But the defense has to change. The play calling has to change. You have Nicholas John Bosa on the edge. You have highly paid defensive linemen there. You have the best middle linebacker duo in the league. You have a secondary that performs best in zone coverage, but you're playing man coverage. The tackling is atrocious. So, I mean, that's just fundamentals. Get back to basics. Play the game the way you need to play the game, and things will turn around. They get to play Seattle 2 out of the next 3 weeks off their bye, so they could swap their position around with Seattle in division. Looks like it's probably they're going to end up having to go through Philly again. They're going to have to go to Philly to play them here in the next few weeks, and they're probably going to have to go through Philly in an NFC Championship game as well if things hold, because of this recent 3-game losing streak. Because I don't see Philly. They've played bad virtually every single game this year, but they're 7-1. You can't fade that. So the Niners have problems on defense. They may be making moves on the trade deadline here tomorrow. I think Jacksonville also is going to be looking. Their division is it's more wide open for them. But the Niners, to win and possibly compete for a Super Bowl, they need to make some moves. The same issues that they've had exist now with secondary, with edge, with the defensive line and with the offensive line. So solidify that, make some moves, get some players in, get back to basics, and coach, put the scheme that has worked for the last few years with Bob Saleh and DeMeco Ryans into play, and tell Steve Wilkes, you're going to have to call this defense, and if you don't want to do that, we will let you go, and we have somebody here in-house that will go and call this defense, which is what they should. If that's the case, that's what they should do. And it's not a thing about being a black coach or anything. It's just he's bad at what he does. Because the last 3 weeks, he doesn't even look like he knows what he's doing. The first 5 weeks, it seemed like it was just plug and play, and I think that's what it was. Once he started implementing some of his schemes, it didn't work. But we will see. 5-3 going into the bye, plenty of season left. It's been part and parcel for the 49ers to have a period where they struggle or don't look great, and then they seem to get together and work as a team and start playing really, really well. So personally, as a 49er fan, that's what I'm hoping for. My fantasy teams, my dynasty team is doing really well this week, which tells you all you need to know. And our team's been in the basement all year, largely because I had Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. So, and they both played well. And in terms of my league, Vic is having a great year because CM Punk is coming back, and it's proof positive again. Destroyed me this week. In terms of the other matchups, I'm going to check them out a little bit more in a moment. But in my other league, I'm leading that one, so it's nice. I just want to keep on going with that. So one league I'm leading in the mix, in two, and then in one it doesn't really matter to me. So that's what's going on in fantasy. A lot with all these bye weeks going on, a lot of moves to be made, trying to figure out trade partners or people that might make sense to make moves. I think there's a lot of teams in contention, so I don't think a bunch of us are really trying to trade within each other. So there's opportunities there, though. But your Jaguars are doing work, Josh. And what are some of the things your team or Trent Baalke is eyeing up to go and solidify a playoff run, possibly get yourself into a 2 or 3 seed, which would give you a little bit more favorable. I mean, if you get into a 2 or 3 seed, I think you avoid Kansas City, at least in the second round. Definitely, if you get a 2 seed and you were to go and win a couple of games, you'd avoid Kansas City. I think that's really what the aim is. I mean, even though Kansas City, I'm not sure who's the best record right now. We'll go and check it out. But what are you looking at for your Jaguars?
Yeah, I mean, I think trade-wise, deadline here coming up Tuesday afternoon. I think the Jaguars possibly pass rush. They need help there. It's gotten better, of course, but it's always something that they need. They need that one piece to make turn themselves into a game changer. I mean, they already are a very solid defense, but they still need that one guy to kind of take them to the next level. And they were looking at possibly Josh Uche from the Patriots or Danielle Hunter on the Vikings. Of course, the Vikings last couple of weeks seem to have turned it around, but then yesterday, of course, the Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins out for the year with the blown Achilles, so that does change the trajectory of the season for the Vikings. And their ceilings. So, and they've already got a lot of players injured as well. So possibly maybe they give up on the year or part way with players that no longer are in their future. And Hunter may be one of those guys. Uche, I think, is a lot more closer to what they need. That doesn't change their scheme or change their philosophy on defense. Of course, Trayvon Walker, great at stopping the run, not so good at pass rush. Uche is somebody who's good at pass rush, but wouldn't take away from their ability to stop the run. So I lean towards seeing that trade happen more than the Daniel Hunter possibly coming here, but not going to hate either if move if they go for one or the other. So we'll see. But as far as the game Sunday, of course, Jacksonville moves 6-2, as I mentioned at the top of the show. The Jaguars, of course, throttled the Steelers 20-10. They just really needed to be able to have a complete game. They haven't had it yet. They had a touchdown in the third quarter to Travis Etienne, 50-yard bomb from Trevor Lawrence there. So Etienne showing his receiver abilities there on the outside, going out and make that catch and taking it to the house. The Steelers were injured, though, of course. They injured their quarterback there on the third quarter, or at the end of the second half, and he injured his ribs. So just Kenny Pickett there, just not a great quarterback to start with, and he got injured, and Trubisky had to come out, and then he threw a couple of picks there. So just stability for the Jaguars to be able to stop the Steelers throughout the game. They took away their running game. George Pickens had a comment before the game saying that the Jaguars are a hope defense, which I'm not really sure what he meant by that. And, we would have hoped to have seen that Pickens and the Steelers could have put up a better effort, because they went out and didn't really do anything all day. And of course, afterwards, Andrew Wingard had said, and Rayshawn Jenkins were like, well, be better, George, at being able to produce a good game. So, of course, 6-2 record, and Andrew Wingard had one of the picks there and went into the end zone and picked up one of the terrible towels and waved it around as he came out of the end zone. So, that's probably like one of the funniest things I've seen in a long time, and I chuckle every time I see that post there, or that video there, and it just makes me glad to see that, of course, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're definitely one of the legacy teams in the NFL that has a huge following that gets very annoying, and just seeing all those Steelers fans online lose it and everything, and the team blaming the refs, saying that the refs wanted the Jaguars to win, which does make sense to me, because Steelers are a legacy team, like I said, and the Jaguars, small market team that that they seem to not get in a whole lot of love on the media, on national media side. So just a good win there, moves them to 6-2. They're on a roll, five wins in a row going into the bye week. So looking forward to seeing how they come out of the bye week, how they match up, if they make any trades or anything like that, and how they match up with the 49ers, of course, reeling after starting out on a 5-0 win streak. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, kind of go back to that 2017 matchup with the 49ers going up against in San Francisco against the 49ers at the beginning of the Jimmy Garoppolo era, and that was when they really kind of exposed some of the weaknesses of the Jaguars defense back then. And, Blake Bortles threw a pick six in that game. So, now the 49ers come over to Jacksonville, and we'll see now here how, what time are they going to play, if they play in the 1 p.m. time slot, or if they shift this game to a later time slot. I've heard that Fox would like this game to stay as their America's game of the week or something like that. So it's either going to be a 1 or 4 p.m. game, hopefully a 1 p.m. game to throw off the body clock of the 49ers there. So we'll see how that goes. Should be a good matchup either way, though. But the Jaguars on a roll here. Now they get the bye week and chance to rest up. They still got some inconsistency on offense. I think a lot of that has to do with Zay Jones just not being on the field very much this year due to knee injuries. So hopefully he gets healthy here in the bye week and they can work him back into the lineup and help open up opportunities for Calvin Ridley and for Christian Kirk here. So looking forward to seeing how that works out and everything. And the Trevor Lawrence continues to put up good stats. Did have a bad interception there in the second quarter, so got to clean that up. But he's still advanced statistics wise. Jimmy Garoppolo here hurt once again on Monday Night Football, but still proving that he's good in very key situations when they need him to be good. So went out there and had a good game against the Steelers. So really happy about that. Fantasy wise, honestly had a good game fantasy wise, but just came up short once again. So we'll see how that goes next week. Probably gonna have to figure out my quarterback situation because I have both Brock Purdy and Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to fix my roster here for the coming week and sign somebody off the street. So we'll have to figure that part out there. But probably would have lost if I started Mark Andrews and kept Garrett Wilson. Probably would have lost by like 0.7 or something. So that's unfortunate, but whatever. So just interesting time in fantasy, and gotta go and figure that one out. So we'll see. But glad to have a winning football team though on the pros side. Of course, haven't seen this many wins this early in the season yet. 2017 they were still win loss until November, and then last year they didn't have a winning record until the final game of the year. So to be this far up, over 500 at this point in the season, haven't seen that yet as a fan of the Jaguars in my lifetime. So glad to be here for it. And people been saying when the Jaguars finally get good, watch out because all the fans on Twitter are going to be so annoying. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, you guys have had a rough time for many years, so the fact that you have that, box office quarterback and you have you're going on a run here in a very difficult AFC. Probably when you consider the divisions here, the Jacksonville Jaguars have an advantageous situation, minus Houston, which is an up and coming team, so they're very young. Tennessee we don't really know what they are, and then you also look at I'm just going to switch that just for a second. I was looking at it out of curiosity. Right now, you'd be the third seed Jacksonville, right behind Miami, and Kermit the Frog would be first, and Lamar Jackson is the Ravens fourth. Bills, Steelers, and Browns would be in the playoffs. Niners fall down with the three consecutive losses from, I think, the 1 seed or 2 seed or whatever to the 6th seed with ahead of the Vikings. Of course, that's going to change. The Saints trending up, which is interesting. I think the Saints are probably going to end up going and overtaking the Atlanta Falcons because they're a disaster. They're only going to have one representative in that. That's a one-team division there. The NFC North is looking like a one-team division, even though it's somewhat close still. It's only 12-point game, but Jimmy Garoppolo is just getting destroyed now. The Shithawks are going up, but we'll see what they're doing because they have a really difficult schedule coming up. Miami and Kansas City, they have their collision course in Frankfurt, Germany, of all places. So we'll see how that game goes off. There was the box office game for Miami against Philly, and they shit the bed. So the Bills are trending up, so that's someone to look at for sure. what is it? I was the Colts. Yeah, the Colts are a disaster area too. So who cares? That's who I was trying to figure out who the other team was in the division. So there's that. We'll go, and I'm gonna shorten this, make this smaller. No, I didn't want to do that. All right. We'll get into the MotoGP and Moto2 in Thailand to start our GSP roundup. Thailand Grand Prix, Jorge Martin gets the victory in a photo finish over Pecco Bagnaia. What is this? Every freaking play there's a sack. I think he's been hit every single play for the last 6 plays or 8 plays. I mean, this is insane. Jorge Martin over Pecco Bagnaia and Brad Binder, Marco Bezzecchi, Fabio Quartararo, Marc Marquez, your top 6. The points, and then I just have to go back. Super or sprint race, Jorge Martin won that one over Brad Binder, Luca Marini. Bagnaia was 7th. The standings for the standings for MotoGP, Pecco Bagnaia is 13 points ahead of Jorge Martin right now in the World Championship. Bezzecchi 3rd, Binder 4th, Espargaro 4 points ahead of Johan Zarco for 5th. And Fabio Quartararo, with his recent run of success, has gotten himself back into the top 10 in points, a point ahead of Jack Miller. Marc Marquez right now is 14th in points, is 12 behind what's possibly going to be his replacement at Repsol Honda. They may end up swapping rides, Fabio Di Gianantonio. So that's something we'll look at here as we get closer to the end of the season for them. In terms of Moto2, Filipe Aldeguer gets the win over Pedro Acosta. Somikant Chantra in his home Grand Prix finishes 3rd. Tony Arbolino, Ayagura, Ramirez, Albert Arenas, Armani Ramirez, racing for OnlyFans, American Racing. That's just interesting. Arenas, Lopez, Guevara, and Gonzalez round out the top 10. Sam Lowes is 14th. Darren Binder actually got a point. And the other OnlyFans American Racing rider finished but didn't score a point. Joe Roberts crashed. It looks like he crashed with the Japanese rider Hada 2 laps into the race. And then Sura for the Ford Racing team didn't even finish the first lap of the race. So there's that. The standings for the Moto2 World Championship heading into their next round. Acosta is 63 points out of Arbolino. So we're getting close to that point where Acosta is going to be the world champion there in both Moto3 and Moto2. Jake Dixon is 13 points out of Aaron Canet. Chantra is ahead, by 6.5 points over Aldeguer. And he is, 9 and 6, 15.5 points behind Aaron Canet there. So Joe Roberts 14th in points, 9.5 points behind Sam Lowes. So I mean, right now chances of him really getting to the top 10 are slim. but he could possibly get, as I've said multiple times over, I think 12th is his best case scenario. The supercars were at Surfers Paradise this past weekend, and I said something rare happened relative to this season, and it was the Fords winning both races. The Boost Mobile Gold Coast 500, the race one, or top 10 sure, race 26. The results, or no, that's qualifying. That's not what I wanted. Cam Waters there, Ford, and trying to go results and standings. Season results. So, that was qualifying. So pole for both races was Ford's. So I looked at the wrong thing. That's, of course, why wouldn't I? Oh no, wait a minute. I'm not there. Yeah, no, I was right. Cam Waters won race one for the supercars. Now this is really weird. 85 laps. Repco. I don't know why it's saying event results. I don't want event results. I just want the goddamn race results. One step at a time, title chase. Arabic strokes. Oh, this is not, I guess that's what I get for trying to do it on this site. I thought the MotoGP website was bad, but I guess now I'm starting to see that this website is also not good. Season results. They don't allow you. Just clicks onto the driver. They don't even. Once you get into you have to go and dig for the freaking results. Like, really? What a pain in the ass. Boy. That's not good for me. Trying to go through all of this shit. You got Repco Supercars. Oh, finally. For fuck's sake, we finally got it. Cam Waters gets the win over Shane Van Gisbergen and David Reynolds. Thomas Randall makes it 3 Fords in the top 4. Points leader Brody Kostecki finished 5th. Chaz Mostert last week or during the weekend announced an extension with Walkinshaw Andretti United. So congratulations to him. Big thing to keep him in the Ford fold because he is one of the most talented drivers on the grid. In race 26, David Reynolds gets the win for Penrite Racing, giving Ford a sweep of the weekend. Brody Kostecki second, Cam Waters and Matthew Payne gives Penrite 2 out of the top 4 drivers, and Ford again 3 out of the top 4 spots. Shane Van Gisbergen finishes 5th. The driver standings right now, Brody Kostecki leads the championship by 131 points over Shane Van Gisbergen. Will Brown and his future teammate Brock Feeney separated by 9 points for 3rd. Chaz Mostert is in 5th. Cam Waters with his second win of the year, moves within a point of Andre Heimgartner for 6th. And then you have David Reynolds with his win and pole from this weekend moves himself up to 12th in points, about 80 points out or so of the top 10. All right, then the World Superbike finale at Jerez. You have Alvaro Bautista, of course, locks up the championship. Last race for Toprak Raskat-Lioku as a Yamaha rider, and the last race for Johnny Ray as a Kawasaki rider, which, riding for the Kawasaki factory team basically changed his life because he became a multi-time world champion in the process. We'll see how next year goes with Johnny Ray going to Yamaha, Toprak Raskat-Lioku going to BMW, and will anybody have an answer for Alvaro Bautista, now a two-time world champion, won all 3 races during the weekend. Race 1 over Bautista over Raskat-Lioku and Andrea Locatelli. Race 2, Bautista over Raskat-Lioku and Dominic Argater. And then Argater was second in the sprint race, and Johnny Ray was third in the sprint race. Trying to get into the actual results of the race. Garrett Gerloff had her first race, finishing 14th. Then in race 2, going to that, the results. Garrett Gerloff finished 9th in race 2. Then you had the Super Pole race, which is, I'm going backwards because the Super Pole race isn't as Gerloff finished 9th in that. So bad first race. He scored points in all 3 rounds there. But still, I don't think what he wanted out of the weekend. Garrett Gerloff finishes the season 12th in points, 5 points out of finishing in the top 10. There was a tie between Javi Vieje and Alex Lowe's at 149 points. So we'll see what happens next year. For Garrett Gerloff, he'll continue with the BMW satellite team. See if Toprak Raskat-Lioku moving over to BMW will help them. Gerloff was the best finishing BMW rider, so credit to him. A lot of changes going on in World Superbike, so we'll see if there's more compelling action and whatever as we go along for next year. Bautista seemed to be like fish lips. The NHRA at Las Vegas, the results there leading into the final race of the season. In the top fuel category, Mike Salinas gets the win over Justin Ashley. Salinas from the number 1 spot beat Rob Passy, Tony Schumacher, Josh Hart. I mentioned Justin Ashley came from the number 6 spot, beat Dan Mercier, Austin Prock, and Steve Torrance on his way to the final. In funny car, Robert Height got the victory over Bob Tasca III. Robert Height started in the number 1 spot. Jeff Deal red-lit against him in the first round. He beats Alexis Joria, Blake Alexander. And then Tasca started second, beats Steve Densham. Cruz Venturon, I think, had a mechanical. Then beats Matt Hagan in the semifinals, big there in terms of the points, but lost to Robert Height in the final. Pro Stock car, Enders gets the victory over Greg Anderson. The rivalry has been going on for years. Anderson came out from the number 8 spot, beat Aaron Stanfield, Kyle Koretsky, Matt Hartford on his way to the final. She went and started second, beats Mason McGahey, Troy Coughlin Jr., who's a teammate right now for the last couple of races. But Troy Coughlin Jr., who is a regular teammate, and then beats Jed Coughlin Jr. in the semifinals. Interesting how his car had issues in the semifinals after being really good. Had qualified 11th, had a great run in the first round, then had a really tight race against Christian Quadra in the second. So that was that there. Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera gets another victory over Eddie Krawick. Gage Herrera won from the number one spot. Angie Smith comes back from her injuries from a few races ago after a big crash. Qualifies but doesn't run. Essentially given a single there to Herrera in first round. Mark Ingwerson, Jerry Savoy making an appearance. And then, I said, Krawick from the number 2 spot beat Karen Stouffer, who didn't make a run either. Steve Johnson, Gianna Evaristo in the semifinals. And, so that's the results there for NHRA, NHRA Nevada Nationals. Have to go through. And so, that was E3, 2, Eliminator, round 2. That's not there. I don't know if it doesn't look like Tony raced this past weekend he did and lost in the first round. Starting line advantage, but Parker has lead by 200 feet and takes the win. Better reaction time, better 60 foot, but then his car fell off there at the end. So early exit for him, and in his fight to possibly win the Top Alcohol Dragster National Championship. It's not looking too good. Right now has was it 64 plus 75 points, 75 point gap between himself and Julie Naddis, who is the national points leader. He's pretty solidly in second. Sean Cowie and Matthew Cummings. Point separates those two. Joey Severance and Jackie Frick are tied for 5th in the championship. So Tony Stewart looks like he's going to fall short of a national championship here in his first year as a Top Alcohol Dragster full-time competitor. Get into the Camping World Drag Racing Series in Top Fuel, heading to Pomona with points and a half. Steve Torrance leads Doug Coletta by 15. Leah Pruitt's 34 points behind in third. Salinas minus 76. Justin Ashley minus 82. So I think those are the guys and girls that have a chance there. Anybody within 100 points. I guess anybody within 150, but I really doubt that Antron Brown is going to put up a national event record this weekend or in a couple weeks' time. Matt Hagan in a 3-way title fight with a 15-point lead on Bob Pasca and then a 17-point lead for Robert Height over Robert Height. So that's a 3-way battle there. 3 different manufacturers, Dodge, Ford, and Chevy. Ron Capps 139 points behind, or else thinking about all 4 manufacturers involved in Funny Car there. And then Eric Enders, barring a DNQ, I think is going to win another championship. And Pro Stock, Greg Anderson's going to need a lot of help to go and win win the championship. And then Gage Royal, same thing. More or less has got it won over his teammate Eric Quaywick. So we'll see what happens there in a few weeks' time at Vegas. Central European Rally coming up next is Cali Rovanpera gets the win and clinches his second World Rally Championship. Or no, he finished second, wins the World Rally Championship for a second year in a row. Thierry Neuville gets the victory. Trying to go and scroll through. Yeah, so Neuville wins by 57.6 seconds in his Hyundai over Rovanpera, and Otanek finishes third and fourth. So all three manufacturers in Rally 1 get represented. Sebastian Ogier fourth. Takamoto Katsuda for Toyota gives 3 Toyotas in the top 5. Teemu Suninen for Hyundai, Gregoire Munster for Ford, Formeau for the leading Rally 2 or RC2 Ford Fiesta Mark II non-points. Siamin wins WRC2, and then Pierre-Louis Loubet rounds out the top 10. Efren Evans leads Neuville by 7 points. Tanek in fourth, and then Ogier is in fifth. Toyota's won the constructors in the World Rally Championship. The season finale for WEC coming up this coming weekend in Bahrain. Race week, full event preview. Okay. LMP2, last race for LMP2 as a full-time category in the class, and the last race for the GTE category, which was once GT2, will go away after this weekend. It's a rookie test because of the LMGT3. The GT3 category will now be in the World Endurance Championship. So that'll be interesting to see how that all goes. Trying to get something. Want to see the entry list. Practical infos. Poster event map. That's not what I wanted. About this race. Track. Yeah, there you go. Then they don't do it in, so yeah, I'll go in hypercar. You have the Cadillac number 2, Floyd Vanwell number 4, Porsche Penske Motorsports, their 2 cars, the 2 Toyotas, the Hertz Team Jota 38, both 2 Ferraris, both Peugeots, and then the Proton Competition Porsche. A lot of great names, familiar names across the hypercar category. On LMP2 in their final round, it says 11 cars in LMP2, 12 in hypercar, and then in GTAM 13 drivers there. The standings, the classification. Right now, Brendan Hartley and Ryo Hirakawa and Sebastian Buemi, I think they drive the 8 car. Yeah, they are leading over their teammates in the 7 car, Jorge Maria Lopez, Kamui Kobayashi, and Mike Conway for the World Endurance Drivers Championship. So we'll see there the Ferrari of Paraguidi, Antonio Giovinazzi, and James Calado, the winners of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, are third over their teammates Fuco, Molina, and Nicholas Nielsen. Two teams dominant. The Cadillac Ganassi team of Alex Lynn, Earl Bamba, and Richard Westbrook are fifth. Lauder Estre and Lawrence Van Doer sixth. Their teammates are with Dane Cameron, Makowicki, and Christensen seventh. First Peugeot and some of the other guys there. So that's the points in Drivers' Championship. Manufacturers is Toyota, 40 points ahead of Ferrari. World Cup for hypercar teams, Jota has a head start. Endurance trophy for LMP2. It's a 33-point lead for Louis Delatraz, Robert Kubica, and Rui Andrade over Albert Costa, Fabio Scheer, and Jacob Schmiechowski, the winners of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the Inter-Europol team. Team WRT 41 over Inter-Europol. Then the United Autosports 22 is in third. In GTM drivers, Corvette Racing locked it up a while back. Ben Keating, Nicky Katzberg, Nicholas Verone. Nicholas Verone will be racing one of the Corvettes in LMGT3 next year in the States. And then in AM, of course, Corvette Racing teams beats right now are the champion, of course. Good battle. Iron Dames, AF Corsa, number 54, Dempsey Proton Racing, and ORT, the Aston Martin, the Oman Racing, Aston Martin, separated 14 points, separate those four teams. So we'll see what happens in that. The rookie test will have interesting drivers in the field sampling. Some for the first time sampling hypercar equipment. Some because of winning in other categories, and some because they're young, of course. Then you have 5 LMP2 cars, which will be there for the last time, and then 4 GT AM cars racing in or practicing at the Bahrain rookie test. We'll mention some information on that more next week. The last thing I wanted to talk about, and it'll lead into our start of our discussion for the NASCAR triple header at Phoenix, was Eric Almirola's announcement, which he was slow rolling for a while, Josh. It's been talk for the last couple of years that Eric Almirola, he may retire, he may not. He's decided that, he's not going to retire, but he's not going to race for Stewart-Haas Racing. And then Smithfield also announced that they're going to leave the sport, which has been the thing for a while. Everybody has known that if Almirola quit, they're connected to him, or they're leaving NASCAR in general. But it sounds like Eric Almirola is looking at other options. He had 1 year at Junior Motorsports and Xfinity, with middling. He was in the top 5 in points, but he wasn't really a factor week to week. In the Truck Series, he finished second in points 1 year, trying to. I don't know if he lost to Sauter. I don't remember who he lost to that year, but we'll see what Almirola. I mean, what did you think about it when you heard the announcement? I mean, to me, I've been looking for Almirola to leave for a while. If Smithfield is willing to sponsor mediocrity, but they don't want to take a chance on someone like Ryan Preece or someone else. I think what kind of sponsor are they really? But in terms of Stewart-Haas Racing as a whole, it's who's going to sponsor them? What's going to happen? Are they going to keep Blickensderfer? Personally, I don't think he's that good. He put together, I guess they put together a good car last weekend, but are they going to make changes there? Or what kind of changes are coming to the table? Because Stewart-Haas has been bad. Yesterday was one of their best performances of the year, relative. And you're talking about race 35. It took 35 weeks to get that. They've been generally across the board terrible. Maybe the worst big team in the sport. So who comes in to replace him? I mean, there's a lot. You could take it whatever way you want to take it there. It seems like a lot of people are saying Gagson's going to be it, but I have a hard time believing that Gagson's the answer, no matter what paycheck amount of money he brings to the table.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one. In the announcement that on this past weekend that Eric Almirola was going to step away from the 10 car and retire from full-time racing and scale back the part-time deal. It's kind of been interesting. His career arc the last couple of years, we thought he was going to retire for sure after last year, but then decided to come back for 2023. And then, now has decided to step away full time, essentially. And even then, in his announcement, he didn't outright say that he was gonna retire. The wording in his own announcement just looked really odd, or read off really odd. So it seems like he wants to do this part time, just whenever he wants to. Still wants to race, but needs to spend time at home with the family and everything. So understandable, of course, but and possibly do this in Xfinity or part-time truck ride or something. And it's gonna be interesting to see who replaces him there in that 10 car. Obviously, it seems like Noah Gragson is one of the leading candidates, but I guess that's fine. But who's a sponsor and everything, and how in the world are they going to pay for all of these rides? With Haas paying for the 41 mostly, the 14 doesn't have full-time sponsorship. The 4 lost Busch to Ross Chastain. Mobile may be on the outside looking in, or on the outside now, possibly, from what I've heard online, what I've seen. So, and then 10, the Smithfield is leaving. They decide they don't want to be tied to NASCAR anymore. I guess they were just sponsoring Eric Almirola, and now they're out on the sport, and now that car needs a sponsor now. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and who replaces him. And obviously, Gene Haas has the F1 team, and he's sponsoring the 41. He can't have that much money, right? So we'll see who fills in here. And everything. And the 14 has some sponsorship, but it's definitely, a hodgepodge of sponsors that he has on there. So there's no one full-time sponsor that he really has that you can really identify him there with, except for Mahindra. So, it's going to be an interesting situation there for the Stewart-Haas, and they insist they're going to stay full-time with four cars. So we'll see how this plays out. But, definitely, from where they were a couple of years ago, they definitely have taken a downhill descent, into irrelevance. After Kevin Harvick and the years that he's been there, they haven't been able to sustain the team beyond him there for whatever reason. So we'll see how it goes. But this is definitely going to be an interesting development. For the 10 car. Don't know where Eric Almirola is going to go for his part-time job. We'll see where he goes, but now he gets to kind of scale back and just race whenever it's more convenient to him. So, just a weirdly timed announcement, of course. With I think we all kind of expected that he was not going to return, or that he was going to make a big change to his career. but just the way that announcement from his PR team was very worded very strangely and everything. So, and now only one race left. It's very, very hard to make, like these things need to be announced, at the end of the summer, beginning of September, when you have time to put together deals now with, there's still, the end of the year and everything, but, now it's a very critical time to be able to find a driver and put together sponsorship for, the rest of the season for next year. So we'll see who fills in this seat full time, if it ends up going to Gragson or anybody else. But yeah, that was just a interesting announcement. Of course, now going back to Martinsville real quick, finished second and honestly had a chance to win that game or that race on Sunday. So interesting timing there with how it performed, and the announcement possibly could have capped that off with the win, of course, but Ryan Blaney won that. So yeah, just we'll see how that announcement turns out here, next couple of weeks probably.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. I mean, you have Briscoe with Mahindra, High Point as his two key main sponsors. High Point came with him to the Cup Series, and then Mahindra has become a primary sponsor in large part because it's a combined deal, having Tony with the funny commercials they do together as the two major sponsors. I mean, the major sponsors, Mahindra, and then High Point. You have a bunch of sponsors that have been there over the years with the 14 car continuing. The 4 car had Bush, but that's, you mentioned it, of course, going to Chastain. Hunt Brothers Pizza, which has been a personal sponsor for Harvick. A Mobile One, which has been with Stewart-Haas Racing on and off for many years, since 2011. So we'll see there. And then after that, I'm trying to think, Gear Wrench was there. There is a bunch of sponsors Harvick had on his car. The 41 has had United Rentals. That's a personal relationship for Priest. And then other than that, it's been Haas's money, which has been the case for basically their entire team's existence. And then the 10 car has been Smithfield. So there's no sponsor there. So whoever's coming to the table to drive that car is going to have to probably bring a bag. So then does that mean Riley Herbst gets a call, gets an opportunity, so that we have another monster car on the racetrack? Does Cole Custer get a move back up into the Cup Series if he somehow goes out there and wins the championship on Saturday? I think maybe what they do, or they swap Ryan Preece over and they they'll redo both of those cars. They'll redo the 41 and the 10. They'll put a new number on the car. They'll give make it the 00 instead of the 10. And Cole Custer will drive that car, and then Ryan Preece will drive continue to drive the 41, but they might do some swapping of crews or some shit like that. That might be a way to do it. If Gagson is the call, he has personal sponsorships with some of them, sponsors that are, we know about that aren't great, but they bring money to the table, but it isn't a full sponsorship. I think Wendy's was only like a 5 or 6 race sponsor. He had Black Rifle Coffee or whatever, but that's only a few race sponsor. It was a hodgepodge of sponsors. So what does he bring to the table? He didn't do much of anything when he was in the Cup Series this year. Really has never done much of anything in a Cup car. It took a long time for him to do something in an Xfinity car. He's made more headlines for his off track or post race antics than he has for actually winning. He spit the bit like Denny Hamlin last year in the championship after talking a lot of crap in the Xfinity series and lost to Keebler Gibbs. So we'll see what happens with all that. It's just curious. And since 2018, the drop that Stewart-Haas has had has been really bad. But then when you consider Tony Stewart is more busy with drag racing and any number of his other businesses, and Gene Haas is usually nowhere to be found, I think that's kind of what happens with the performance of a team. Then they can blame, rule changes, getting behind. They've taken over where Roush had been for many years, and Roush has basically started to go where the Stewart-Haas had been. They swapped roles there. But who knows? We'll see what happens. New year, new season coming along in 2024. Maybe new opportunities there. Let's get into the previews here. We'll start with I put the trucks. Yeah, so we'll start with the truck series. There's 38 for 36. Going to go and open this soda here. So, Sean Hingorani is going to be in the 75 truck. Really? Oh man. No, he's going to cause a caution. And I hate to say it because he's a half brown guy. Yeah. So, but he's an idiot. The championship for Corey Heim, who's been the dominant figure in the truck series this year. Carson Osavar, who's had a career-changing season. Former champion Ben Rhodes, who was the beneficiary of Zane Smith's disqualification. And then Grant Enfinger, who made it in on points. Corey Heim and Carson Osavar won in the round of 8 to move into to advance. And then you had 38 for 36. Jesse Love will be he's going to be driving the 2-car for RCR next year, but he's still contracted to Toyota at least for a few more days, so he's going to be driving for Tricon. I got some other K90 cutting to 02, Sensor Dave 04. Dean Thomas announced an extension last week. Marco Andretti will be back in the 7 truck with Spire and Gainbridge. Go through some of these other ones. Nick Leitz will be in the 20 truck. Christian Rosen 22. Stephen Parsons in the Rackley Ward 25. Daniel Dye, Lawless Allen, Jake Drew 61 truck, Connor Jones 66. 2 guys that have made their name by running over people, and then Hingorani as well. So that's a great combination there. Derek Krause will be in a 2nd Spire truck. So some of these guys are going to have to qualify on time. But let's see who picked first. Josh, you picked first last week, so I will pick first. I honestly, Corey Heim has had I don't know how many weeks to prepare for this. His team and whatever, and he's been the best truck and best driver and best team for them a good amount of this season. I see him going out and closing the deal. I don't see somebody outside of the Final Four winning. I see somebody in the Final Four winning, meaning Corey Heim gets the victory and wins the Truck Series championship. The wild card pick for me in this race at Phoenix is going to be. I did have an idea in my head of who I was going to pick as a wild card, but you know what? I'm going to go with Bailey Curry. I'll go with Bailey Curry as my wild card. I don't think that was my initial choice, but that's what I'm going to go with. Bailey Curry is my wild card. The order, championship 4 order will be Corey Heim, Carson Hocevar, Grant Enfinger, and Ben Rhodes. In that order. What do you say, Josh, in terms of your pick for the race win? And I guess if it's going to be one of the championship drivers or not, and who's your wild card, and then the order of the final 4.
Yeah, starting out with the race win, who I will also say is the championship win. I'm going to say, you said Corey Heim. Well, I go with Carson Hocevar winning the final race and winning the championship. Think he's got a little bit better pace right now than Corey Heim does, but it's going to be interesting and final race here this season. The wild card that I'll go with this weekend, I'll go with let's see here. I want to go with I'll say Jake Garcia here. This weekend, he's had an interesting year. I think somebody that kind of fell off over the course of the year, but Phoenix always a wild track for the end of the year. So we'll see how he performs. As a wild card, if he can get a solid finish to kind of cap off the year here. And the order of the sayings that I'll say it's Hocevar, Corey Heim, Ben Rhodes, and then Grant Enfinger.
All right, so that's our truck series picks. We'll move to Xfinity. The championship, 41 cars, 38 spots in the Xfinity race for this coming weekend. We'll go through. So there might be some people that get withdrawn, but go and you have right now it lists Sheldon Creed into 2. I don't think that's going to be the case. Stephen Parsons in the 4 for JD Motorsports, so double duty for him. Dawson Cram driving the 07 for SS Greenlight. JJ Alieni is 08. A lot of last there. Barry in his last race for Junior Motorsports. Daniel Hemrick last race in the Xfinity Series as a full-time driver before moving back up to the Cup Series. Kraus will be driving the 11 for Kaulig. Rajah Caruth will be attempting to make the race in the Hendrick Motorsports 17. Last time they tried to show up to a race, car basically had multiple mechanical issues and saw Boris said DNQ. You have some John Hunter there. Joey Gase is listed driving for his own team. Chris Hacker, that's quite a combination, driving the Emberling Gase vehicles. Nobody listed in a 74 for Harmon. So there's that. Josh, same rules apply. What are your choices for this weekend's Xfinity finale?
Yeah, I think for this, I'm going to go with John Hunter Nemechek. I think he's been the guy this whole year. Go back a couple years ago to the Truck Series, had a dominant year in 2021 with Kyle Busch Motorsports, and probably should have won that. Truck Series championship back then. That went to Ben Rhodes, of course, but he's been the guy this whole year in the 20 car in the Xfinity Series. So I think he's going to wrap it up here and get the win and get the title. I'll say that wild card. I'll go with Raja Karuth. This is a real good opportunity here in Hendrick Hendrick equipment to run here in the final race of the year, and possibly if you get a good finish, you can show you can hang with the big boys in the Xfinity Series. You can possibly leverage this into an opportunity, better opportunity here in the Xfinity Series, or even a better truck ride for sure. So, we'll see how that turns out, but that's a pretty good opportunity there for him. And then the championship order that I'm going to give you here, I'll say that, of course, John Hunter finishes first, and then we got, I'll say that Justin Allgaier finishes in second, and then Cole Custer finishes third, and then Sam Mayer finishes fourth. So, even as a junior motorsports guy, junior fan, I just think they're still set below John Hunter Nemechek there in this. And I think, Phoenix, I think, is going to be a track where that pace is going to matter a whole lot. Last year they couldn't get the job done against Ty Gibbs, and I think that's still going to be the case. Although, I think it'll play out a little bit differently than last year, but I do think that it's going to end up being still a Gibbs car here in victory lane at the end of the day in the Xfinity Series.
All right. I mean, it makes sense with the recent history in general for Joe Gibbs racing at Phoenix International. A lot of drivers that have, for the Gibbs organization, have won there over the years in the Xfinity Series. You did say that the pace may not be there for junior motorsports, but I am going to disagree. I'm going to go with Justin Allgaier because he's been at this, I don't know how many years in the Xfinity Series. He did have a brief sojourn to the Cup Series driving for that terrible H. Scott Motorsports team. Wrecked a lot of equipment along the way, came back to the Xfinity Series and has made a home. I'm going to say that Justin Allgaier gets his elusive Xfinity championship. The wild card for me this weekend, I'm going to go with Myatt Snyder because I'm going to hedge with Joe Gibbs Racing. He's not the full-time driver of that car. The 19 car has had its moments this year. Ryan Truex winning a race. So that, I think that's an opportunity. Snyder had a good run last week, or at times had a decent car going on there. It's Snyder wild card. My order: Allgaier, Custer, John Hunter Nemechek, and then Mayer. I say that similar to what happened to John Hunter Nemechek during his opportunity to win the truck title. Like you mentioned, Josh, issues take place this weekend for him in the race, whether it's a mechanical, whether it's a pit stop issue, something that happens again, and he finishes behind both Allgaier and Custer in that spot. Last but not least is the Cup Series at Phoenix for their championship, 36 for 40, so nobody going home. In that race, Chastain will have Worldwide Express on his one car, Cindric Discount Tire. In the home race for Discount Tire, Austin Dillon with bioethanol. Harvick in his last race of his Cup career will be driving a special Busch Light scheme. Larson, of course, as usual. Castrol Edge for Keselowski, and Nagu for LaJoy, 3 Chi for Kyle Busch, Napa for Clyde, Smithfield in their last race, and Eric Almirola in his last race as a full-time Cup competitor. FedEx for Hamlin. Blaney will have Menards and Dutch Boy on his car. Mahindra for Chase Briscoe. JJ Total Point Patriot Mobile. Action Industries for AJ Allmendinger. We still don't know what he's going to be doing for next year. Christopher Busher with Fastenal. Bass Pro Shops for Truex. Ream and DeWalt for Christopher Bell. Harrison Burton Racing Motorcraft Quick Lane. Joey Logano, Shell Pennzoil. Bubba Wallace in the Columbia Sportswear 23. Byron with Exalta. Okay, so at least it is in Liberty University on the car. Haley in his last race for Colleague will race with Campers in RV. McDowell with Loves and Delo. Todd Gilliland with Boot Barn. Ryan Preece with United Rentals. Usual sponsors for Hocevar and Jones Legacy. Tyler Reddick will have a Toyota sponsor, number 45. And Richard will have Fries and Cheez-Its on his 47. Bowman Ally. Serial 1 e-bikes for Ryan Newman, a sponsor that has appeared multiple races this year for Todd Gilliland. Monster Energy will be on the 54 for Keebler. Cambridge on the 77 for Ty Dillon, and what will most likely be his last Cup race for a long time, if not ever. BJ McLeod, the last race for Live Fast Motorsports in the Cup Series before they sell their charter to Spire to help Trackhouse out and run Zane Smith. And then Daniel Suarez will have Tootsie's Orchid Lounge on his car. I think I hedged who I think is going to win the championship, but I'll just say it. Ryan Blaney, I think, honestly, has the momentum. It's one of his best racetracks. He just went out and had a dominant car at Martinsville. I think this is his time. And he goes and gets the job done to get a championship for the captain. So YRB wins race and championship. I mean, when it comes to this format in all these three series, I think the only instance of somebody not winning the race and winning the championship was Matt Crafton. I don't ever remember it ever not going to somebody who won the race. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, Daniel Hemrick having to make a last turn pass to win his Xfinity championship over Gumby. Sheldon Creed had to make a last restart pass with 2 laps to go to win his truck championship. I mean, it's basically, conspiracy theories aside of what they do with those vehicles, and they just make it so that those 4 vehicles are always running a step above. So we'll see with that. I think Blaney wins the race and wins the championship, though. My wild card is going to be Chase Briscoe, so I'm just going to go full homer with my favorite driver there, and a guy that I've been a fan of and rooted for over the years. So Chase Briscoe, wild card, one of his best racetracks, won his one and only Cup race of his career there. My order for the championship: Blaney, I'm going to say Larson, Bell, and Byron will be my order for the championship race. You get the last word, Josh, so what are you thinking?
I mean, you said Ryan Blaney, and honestly, I was kind of thinking that, but I'll go a little bit differently here. I think, William Byron here, he's been the best driver, overall this season, and I'm kind of the belief that the best driver overall, based on points scored, should win the championship, kind of like the old style. So I'll go with William Byron here, winning the title, winning the 24 car, winning the title for the first time since 2001 here, and William Byron winning his first career championship. He was really good here at Phoenix in the spring, obviously, and led a ton of laps. Not as much as Kyle Larson, but at the end of the day, he ended up winning the race. So Byron wins, and I'll say that my wild card. I'll say that I'm gonna go with Alex Bowman as wild card here. He finished top 10 here back in the spring. They've fallen quite off a bit, but there's one last race here to try and get a good finish here to cap off the year. Obviously Hendrick has been really strong here at this track. This is before all the controversies and everything with the louvers happened. So possible that he can come out here and get a top 10 finish and what ended up being a very poor year for him. So we'll see if he's able to do that. My points order, final order, obviously Byron winning the race. I'll say that Blaney finishes in second to him, and then Larson third, and Chris Bell finishing in fourth place there. So it's gonna be an interesting race on Sunday. We'll see how it plays out. But it's gonna be hopefully it's better than what last year's race ended up being. So have a little bit more action there. So looking forward to seeing it. You mentioned also the winner of the race ended up winning the championship. I will say though that 2017 the Xfinity Series, remember Cole Custer spanked the field in Homestead, did not win the championship, but he was not eligible for that. But William Byron, I think he finished second or third and wrapped it up over, I believe, Elliott Sadler back then. So that was another instance where the winner didn't win wasn't the championship winner. But often, I think in the Cup Series, it's always going to be the case that the winner of the race ends up winning the championship. I don't think it's going to turn out any differently. Although, it'll be interesting. I mean, I was hearing some people over here at work talking about the race, and they're like, "Oh, what if they all wreck and they're out of the race and everything? Who'd win the championship?" That would be an interesting scenario, but definitely think that would not happen here. That's definitely not what NASCAR wants to happen. I mean, it's definitely possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. So, I think winner of the race wins the from the championship 4 wins the race, and then ultimately the title. So it'll be interesting. So looking forward to seeing who ends up being the title, and if one of us ends up being right.
And speaking of being right on predictions, you were right on your predictions exactly in terms of your winner for the Cup Series race and also who made it in on points. I was right on the winner for the Xfinity race, but that was the only, and John Hunter Nemechek with his points, but was wrong with the other driver. But you both were wrong with Hill. Wild card for you, Josh, was also Chase Briscoe. He got a top 5 finish. He was basically the best non-playoff driver that was in the race yesterday. And then in terms of the Grand Prix, Formula One Grand Prix of Mexico, I had the top 2. You had the guy that was probably the star of the show or whatever. You had the driver of the day in Lando Norris. I was close. I didn't pick the right Ferrari, but a Ferrari in third. And then you had Checo, and unfortunately Checo did what he did and took himself out of the race one turn into the Grand Prix there. So as per usual, Josh, you get at least one correct. You got multiples, but you got the Cup winner and the points guy exact. So as I always say, if you're looking to take gambling advice, which I definitely don't advise, but if you're trying to take info or do something with it, Josh's picks usually seem to be a lot more safer than mine, so please bet responsibly. Josh, let us know what's going on in the world of sim racing and gaming in your segment.
Of course, sim racing on iRacing this past week. I really just did a couple of 87 races at Talladega. Won the pole for both of them. I don't normally win the pole on super speedways, but I figured something out. So driving wise, it's a fixed series. I didn't do anything setup wise, but I don't know. I just figured out a line that worked for me somehow, and with the Ford, most people end up on the 87 especially for the speedways. Take the Chevy because it's more stable handling wise, and it doesn't wear out as quick as the on downforce compared to the Ford. But the Ford has a lot of pace on Talladega and Daytona, and Talladega got the pole 2 races in a row, so that was interesting, although I didn't win though. So the first one, I was leading on the last lap and probably should have blocked the outside lane, but stayed on the bottom, and then lost the nose going into turn 3 and drifted up the track into the guy that was on the outside, or that got into my outside, and then put him in the wall, and I scraped the wall and kept going, but then I guess made contact with the wall again and lost it and lost control and ended up finishing 13th. So second time this year that I had the lead on the final lap in an iRacing oval race and ended up not winning. Happened to me like a month and a half ago or something at IndyCar at Auto Club. So I don't know I have won this year on the ovals, but just the couple have gotten away from me that I really should have had back, so it's not even guaranteed that I'd win that one, because I still have to get out of turn 3 and turn 4 cleanly and get through the tri-oval and everything there. So that was that one. And the other second one that I won the pole ended up not being in the lead group. The final lap, got stuck in traffic, got kind of shuffled out of the draft slightly towards the back of the front pack. So was I think in like 11th or something on coming into the tri-oval, and they crashed, of course, and then finished in 5th. So just come up short, but that's all right. Keep on going. Throughout the end of the year here in iRacing, of course, scheduled this week. Michigan Speedway for Gen 4, Michigan Speedway for IndyCar, so maybe we'll focus on that. Phoenix Raceway, of course, for all 3 NASCAR Class A through A series, Truck, Xfinity, and Cup. So, be trying Xfinity and Trucks for sure on here. Maybe Cup, we'll see. Course, road course side. Oh yeah, I did try road courses as well with ARCA Menards at Tsukuba Circuit. That was an interesting experience there. Stock cars on a very small road course, of course. So that's interesting there. Finished okay on that one. And then this week, Formula Fords at Tsukuba Circuit. Series, let's look at that. IMSA at Monza here. That should be fun. Formula One at Brazil. So they're mimicking the Brazil Grand Prix here. So Autodromo Carlos Pace Grand Prix circuit. So that should be interesting there as well. And then you've got the Formula C at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Their GT4 fixed series at Donington Park. Got the let's see what else we have here. Formula IR at Red Bull Ring. The Formula Fords, as I mentioned, at Tsukuba Circuit. Formula B at Tsukuba Circuit as well. Formula B at Silverstone Circuit. IMSA Endurance Series at Road America, I think. So that should be interesting there. Global 5 MX Cup at Oulton Park circuit. You've got Ferrari GT3s at Watkins Glen as well. So that's the roadside, oval side. Of course, mentioned a couple of those. The other ones I haven't mentioned. Guess coming up, we got the Winter iRacing 87 series at Daytona. That's a long distance one, 120 laps. I don't know if they have the times listed on there yet, but that should be interesting. And everything. So that's a interesting one there as well. The Cars Tour at New Smyrna, super late models at Nashville Fairgrounds, 87s at Charlotte Motor Speedway this week on the 2008 version. Draft Masters this week once again in the 2011 COT, 2009 COT. So that should be interesting at Talladega. Delara Dash at Talladega, ARCA at Talladega. So a lot of stuff going on there as well. So hopefully be able to get on some point this week and probably try Phoenix, probably try one of the road circuits as well, and probably try do 87s at Charlotte. So as always, stream at Twitch TV/usailor2. There, go on there, follow and watch all my streams when they're there, and definitely let people know when I am on there and streaming. Twitter, which been popping off about the 6-2 Jaguars. JP Huffine, go on there and see what I have to say, and endorse what other people have to say, sharing memes about the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cup Series and anything else that I find interesting on there. So go on there, follow me at JP Huffine on Twitter, and then of course the channel for the show on YouTube, follow at Grip Street Podcast YouTube. So go on there and comment and subscribe on our videos. So glad to be back for another week, and of course happy Halloween to everyone, and be safe if you go out party or trick-or-treating on Halloween.
Okay, yeah. Thanks as always, man, for all your work on the show and providing your great insights for all the different series and for the NFL, and both of our teams going into a bye, and then now we're going into holding pattern, and we'll see what happens coming back from the bye itself for both of our teams. You can find me at Philip or PG Matthew 28 on Twitter X. You can find me find the Gripture podcast basically anywhere you listen to podcasts, but you can find it at philipgmatthew.com, my personal blog site. I mentioned the YouTube page, Josh did. So that's that. I'm on Philip G. Matthew 28 on Insta. That's basically it. We'll be back for episode 194 of the Grip Strip podcast next week to discuss the NASCAR triple header finale at Phoenix, who wins the championship, the order, etc., etc. We will talk about WEC next week, or whatever else is going on in the roundup, and we preview the Brazilian Grand Prix next week, NFL Week 9, and whatever else comes up between now and next week. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to Gripture Podcast, and we'll see you next time.